back in World War I, when the Confederate American allies with the British and French allegiance went against the German Empire, and we come up against the Russian Soviet and Ottoman Turks and the Austro-Hungarian Empire and Serbia and Lebanon, and followed would be hours and hours of boring old man mumbling drunk into a fucking microphone. And there aren't even any Nazis here, so whatever. Yeah, fucking hell. Oh god, sorry. Can only do that for so long. Yeah, no, I get it, man. A lot of people are thinking, oh, what a fucking chore. We gotta sit through a bunch of boring fucking war history, and there aren't even any Nazis this time. There will be Nazis next time. Oh boy, I know, right? Nazis. Oh, they're coming, don't worry. But not yet, right? You're gonna have to fucking wait for that shit. There is Hitler somewhere Hitler will eventually arrive. That's the best I can offer right now. Hitler is on his way. Other than that, we got a little bit of, precursor to all that. So yeah, I mean, straight up, I do want to dissect that whole regime, the Nazi regime and Hitler's rise to power. Absolutely, it's a crucial part of a lot of this stuff. But if you've been paying attention, it's not the only part of all. Yeah, and you gotta learn about the Soviet Union, and oh man, the Austria-Hungary, that sounds really fucking boring. Bitch, that's where I came from. Fuck, not me, but yeah, exactly. That's where my heritage comes from, you fucking dickwad. Just above Italy, right? Yeah. Who do you think was there when fucking Hannibal came in with all his fucking elephants? Yeah, we saw them first, man. And then, of course, Italy was the only allies of the Nazis in World War II, so... that's your spokesman for all this, if it helps, I'm right in that sleazy gray middle... Oh, my little Swiss neutral zone between the fucking yin-yang, but you know what? I got just enough space. As long as I don't get too fucking negligent, you gotta let me know if that happens. Oh, yeah. But first... Oh, yeah. We can't even start World War I yet. No, I still want to do a quick precursor from, ancient, right? Oh, man. Ready for 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years of history. No, I mean, the quick recap, I know. The point is... It's easy to say, oh, things have changed a lot. Yeah, things have changed a lot. Well, back in the day, oh, when guys had swords and, back in chivalry. My god, if you've paid attention, I hope you know why I'm really glad chivalry died a long time ago. Oh, yeah, no, it's got nothing to do with men being gentlemen. It has everything to do with men being fucking little cunt fucks. Yeah, that's chivalry, in case you're not aware. Chevaliers or Chevaliers, yeah, sounds like a French word. I'm sure they had a decent sense of it at some point. Eventually some hipster douchebag motherfuckers got negligent enough. No, man, it got to a point where if you're important enough, if you are of royal your highness blood or have enough money, then you're not, we can capture you and you can go back to your country. But if you're a poor-ass motherfucker, we're just gonna kill you. So yes, chivalry just became a thing where you can buy your way out of, an execution or a fucking getting captured as a prisoner of war. That's, yeah, right? Is that really a good thing? Oh, don't worry, you guys are all gonna die, but I'm not. I'm gonna buy my way out of here. Yeah, fuck that, not anymore. I'm sure you're thinking, well, what, yeah, there's still rich people. They're not out on the battlefield anymore. They're not pretending to be fighting in a war anymore. They get us to do it. And hey, you might even still think, well, fuck, if you gotta pick one or the other, might as well get them out here, they might still accidentally die. It's true, but that means that your commanding officer is some fucking retarded douchebag who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, and he's gonna run away the second things start going bad, and he's gonna leave you there to die. So wouldn't you rather have a commander who knows he's gonna die too, and he's actually gonna have to try and make sure shit doesn't go that badly? Yeah, there is a difference. And fair enough, you could probably point to some exception. Remember, the exception is not the rule, it's the exception. I'm just saying, for most of history, the commander of the army was just some douchebag. It wasn't based on who was most qualified, it was whoever the king picked. Yeah, it was, I'm the king's son, yeah, the Count, the French Dutch of Count Flanders, yeah. It had Of course, between those people, they might decide, maybe he's a better choice. Yeah, this guy has some experience, blah, blah, blah. Fair enough. Yes, the Crusades we'll quickly look at as we pass. There's a great example of, nobility, for Duke of Normandy kind of guys, straight up Duke of Flanders up in there, and they have to decide which one of us is actually going to be leading an army or just financing operations, right? Yeah, it can come down to that. But you must realize how completely distinguishing that. I'm not going to say it's better in the modern day, but, you have to eventually move forward from that. Otherwise, you're going to be endlessly stuck in, a crusade that's never going to end, basically. No, at some point, you got to pick these people based on who's the most qualified and experienced or actually knows what the fuck is going on. So, where to start? I don't know. You can skip this if you want. Just, if you start asking stupid questions in World War II, I'm going to tell you to shut up. Go back and watch World War I first. Then it'll all start to make more sense. And I don't know, I'm sure some of you realize, once you are, aware of most of these details, you don't necessarily have to be fucking master corncob pipe professor. No, you will have a much better intuition about war. Yeah, no shit. It's just, I don't know, it's really easy for people to get that Rob Reiner attitude where it's like, oh, fuck, it's all the same, just stop it all. It's like, okay, you don't know what it is, you don't know how to stop it, you blah, 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 yeah. The person who knows the least is gonna bitch the most and get nothing done. When you see something like, oh, the Gulf War crisis, oh, 9/11, if you don't know anything about war, it's like, well, what happened? Oh, I don't know. Oh, fucking, must have been the government. No shit, the government was involved in some way, right? It's, oh, the government. Yeah, you gotta be a little more specific, bud. I'm sorry, the government. It's like saying aliens. Oh, you mean illegal immigrants? Which illegal aliens are you talking about? That's kind of half the point of all this. On one hand, it's little useful tidbits of information anyone can apply to something, but yeah, really, if you're hoping for world peace, yeah, it might seem weird that the god of war is here explaining all this war to you. To some people, it's like, whoa, yeah, warmongering, yeah. To them, being ignorant about it is morally superior. It's like, I'm as far away from it as possible. Diablo's in your underpants, you're closer than you think, bitch. On the other hand, if you do learn more about this and get a good intuition about this, you'll be able to see things like this coming, right? You'll be able to make your own natural predictions and compare them to what you see happen. So when people are bitching about 9/11, you say, well, if this happened and then this happened, like, no, how do you, that doesn't, well, it doesn't make sense. Look what I found. No, look, the government, secret fucking CIA classified documents I found. Oh, buddy, I'm sure that's what you found and they did not want you to find that. And further down the rabbit hole with no actual logic or deduction going on. That's why you gotta fucking get out of that shit. Start with your own logic and deduction, and then start adding pieces as you go. That's what fucking Sherlock Holmes does. And, I don't know how this will sound. On one hand, if everyone's more familiar with all of their heritage and history, that means we can all be a lot more racist, and it won't hurt as much, right? Come on. If you start... You'll know what to make fun of, there's classier racist jokes you'll be able to make, yeah, right? Even Native Americans, yeah, well, did you ever wonder how they got there? Oh god, we're gonna have to figure this out at some point, yeah. Hey, I'm not saying they didn't get there first, straight up, they're natives for a reason, let's figure out how that happened. That does relate to way back in the fucking day, bud. Wait, what about Africa? Oh shit, what about Africa? You seen Oprah's mansion in South Africa? Oh fuck, okay, come on, sorry, whatever, man. Tack that on the corkboard. Yeah, no, yeah, oh man, you can spin that any way you fucking want. Get the best spin team on it. No, that's that's a pretty good corncob pipe professor kind of argument if you really want to crack open your corncob pipe and put a monocle on and get fucking old school Monopoly guy serious about this. Oh, Raldo, yes, Raldo, where the fuck did the first humans, pretty damn sure they came out of Africa, right? Ain't that's, yeah, it's a little vague. It's a little vague, because at what point do you draw that line? Ooh, yeah, between Neanderthal and fucking Homo erectus, Neolithical, fucking, when does human become human? Hey, of course we gotta clear this up, man. Garden of Eden, fucking Adam and Eve, Baghdad. Yes, the city of Baghdad. Tigris and Euphrates rivers cross right at Baghdad. If you read the Bible, you know exactly. It's the first fucking thing in Genesis, the Tigris and Euphrates. We'll get there. I'm not discounting that at all. That's very crucial to this, so try to stay with us. Might sound weird. Adam and Eve were fucking, Taliban, Muslim, ATF. They probably didn't have a Taliban or a Muslim or an ATF yet. But straight up, I mean, whatever, you know, it's the thing. All these things are relevant in their own way. It's simple to say you're right or you're wrong, but I mean, I hate to say neither of you are wrong. Just in different ways. Okay, so I don't know if it's the first fucking thing. No, the first thing in Genesis is radiation, bitch. Straight up. God created motherfucking radiation, Rob Reiner. What the fuck? You want to get rid of it? We are playing God's game, so let's roll the dice on this and see what we can come up with. Yeah, when does human become human? Very much within God's game. Who else would have fucking rolled these dice, man? I don't know what he looks like, I don't know where he is, who he is, man, I have not talked to the man. How the fuck could I tell you? If I ever do, I'll try, but that could be difficult. Jesus might come back soon, later, eventually. I can't, motherfucker's got shit to do. Motherfucker's busy. I'm not gonna get mad at him because he was late. What the fuck? I'm just gonna do what I can here while I got time. And yeah, some of you are probably thinking about it now. What do we call it? Homo sapien? Technically, yes, as far as a species goes. And I mean, you can get into biology if you... This is what I mean. It's a little vague depending on how much you know about biology and the fact that, much like the periodic table and all this science, all we're doing is measuring what we observe. Right? People on either side of this fence can, if you're, come on, like, open that gate mechanism and realize what all this science is. That's why it's difficult to deal with people who get too zealous about this kind of thing. Well, how do you know? It's like, I know what I measured, I know what I observed. That's what I'm working with. And if you're gonna, how do you know? Well, why don't you measure it? No! I already know. Someone else already measured it and told me. Yeah, careful with that. Of course, the other half comes down to labeling and categorizing all the things that we measure and observe. Yeah, can't label me, man. I hate to say, that's half my secret. How do I remember all this shit? Not good at labeling. You just efficient labeling of things in your brain and everything. Yeah, these wacky Dutch Flanders nonsense names that I was making fun of, it might be a joke, but that's a very easy way to get scatterbrain neddly diddly diddly and not remember anything. Pretty sure I said this before, but I'll clarify it again. The key distinction between, you can't label me, or what gives you the right, or whatever. I'm not your parents, I'm not God, I'm fucking douchebag God of War in a stupid costume or some shit. Yeah, there's a difference. This ain't no fucking, what the fuck. I'm hesitant to use that title, but realistically it falls in that context. I ain't flying no higher than Mount Olympus with this shit. Oh, some asshole, hey, Olympus Mods is on Mars, bitch. The Muslims on Mars. Learn, this shit's almost real, bud. You look into it. So yeah, I mean, I hope this helps with your own labeling process of things. I'm sure even you label things sometimes. Did you name your cat? Oh, damn, how dare you label that man. Whatever, that woman. So, yeah, think about No, there's the difference, is you labeled it. A little different when you label something. Exactly. It's true, though. It's very true. We are labeling these things. And I've said this before, too. Why not cap it off with this? The main reason we label these things, to remember them and to talk about them, to communicate them. So I can tell you, about the fucking neutrons? The Heisenschroger neutrons? Holy fuck. Yeah, I might as well call it that for the sake of my own experiment, and that can be its own experiment. We were talking about the Hobgoblin and the Heisenschroger neutrons. Which of those two things sounds more real to you? Oddly enough, Hobgoblin has more scientific merit. They're both terms I invented, labeled myself, and yes, scientists do this. Alright, so if you can, if you open that gate mechanism in your brain, and we can all agree on this one thing, as we label things, it is us labeling things, just like naming a million cats. Yes, if you had a million cats, you must start giving them collars with names. Otherwise, what the fuck? Yeah, I mean, when we say Homo sapien and fucking Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal, these are names of cats. The different cats, that's the fluffy cat, that's the skinny cat, that's the weird cat, or whatever, right? Basically, not too much different. And humans today are all Homo sapiens. We draw the line in terms of a species, and again, please don't get, if we were all in agreement of, we just made this label for our own sake of study. This ain't, no, your parents didn't walk in and start bitching at you about what they think a species is. Okay, we gotta kick that out of here. If fucking Rob Reiner, get the fuck out. And you might even realize this somewhat pertains to the ignorance of racism. Oh god, yeah, no, we are all Homo sapiens, okay? And if you want to say that label isn't valid, then my god, you got a long uphill battle ahead of you. Might be more of a Nazi than you thought. Oh god, right? Straight up. Careful. No, we're all Homo sapiens, and species, as we label and define and observe them, that's what we observe. If you observe something else, tell a scientist, a biologist, to be like, dude, I saw a species do something that species don't do. Well, now you're a scientist and getting crazy scientist money and bitches. Straight up. This even applies to the crazy conspiracy nut looking for aliens. Like, dude, if you want to find an alien, you better know what to look for. Yeah, right. It might be subtle. You might not realize it unless you know a little bit about this sort of labeling in biology. You have to know what to tell the government when you call them. Anyway, as we observe species, there are really only 4 or 5 characteristics or criteria. And remember, this is how we label it, not the other way around. This is not your parents telling you that you have to reproduce and you have to eat this food. Yeah, right? We're saying that species are capable of reproduction, capable of eating, shitting, moving, breathing, whatever. We have these few basic things that all animals do, that all plants do, that all, fungus and bacteria do. They all reproduce a certain way. They all eat and shit in a certain way. Some of them sleep. Like, bacteria don't really sleep, whereas mammals do sleep. Do plants sleep? That's an interesting idea, isn't it? So, if we look at Homo sapiens and the criteria of our species, all humans are, by a default, capable of reproduction, unless you have a disease or whatever, right? There are things, injuries, things that could prevent that, or too old, too young, whatever. I'm just saying, any race of human can reproduce with any other race of human. That's how we categorize as the same species. Just like dogs or cats, yes, you can crossbreed dogs, the Shih Tzu and the bulldog for the bullshit. The bullshitzu. You've probably even heard the term mutt, like, oh, those grangy mutts. That means you've been crossbred so much that you're basically just me, basically. The Heinz 57 mix. There's 57 ingredients in there, and we don't know which one is which. And yeah, I don't know how this is going to sound, but at least I have some scientific, theologizing behind this. It's not just coming out of my asshole. You probably know that mutts, ask a veterinarian, mutts are usually healthier than purebreds. Purebred dogs tend to have more health problems. Right? Think about it. The more genetic material you have access to, it's kind of like the Zerg in StarCraft, the guy who spins all the genetic strands, like, go consume more genetic material and we'll add it to the hive, and then he takes their genetic strands and adds it to the hive and creates a new Zerg. Evolution, evolution. I'm sure some people might be skeptical, I'm trying to be fair. I don't know, this is a partial circumstantial evidence, you might say. I know, it's not absolute fucking smoking gun proof. But it's something you can add to the table, Exhibit A or Exhibit F, whatever the fuck we are here. The Tsars of Russia, you probably heard jokes about the royal family of Russia being so inbred that they had, like, hemophilia and were so, like, I don't know the right word, just, like, sickly and weird and, pale and fucking could barely... I don't mean, like, whiter is worse, I just mean in the sense that they couldn't even get blood to their skin kind of thing. Like, they got to a point where they were, like, walking corpses. Almost, that's kind of the joke. I don't know how far it really got. And just to specify, that's from inbreeding in the same family, basically, right? A royal family. And you know what? This is a great little thought experiment. Let's dive into this infinite universe and see where it goes. Fucking, right? Yeah, how far can we take this? So, I mean, in a perfect fantasy universe, right, or whatever, Game of Thrones, straight up Game of Thrones. What do they got, 9 or 10 families going on? You gotta keep it in the royal families, right? You don't want to be fucking peasants and demons. I mean, I know that's a neat idea, but you gotta, that's not the king's son, right? Yeah, straight up, you gotta be careful with that shit. But you want to bet that someone wanted to call it Game of Bones, and they were like, dude, no, dude, it was a step too far. So, yeah, I mean... You're probably thinking, okay, I can still breed with their family, right? It depends which family. All right, not those guys. In a perfect world, sure, but even in your rough, dark fantasy universe, no, some of them are bad guys or enemies or communists or whatever, man. Probably only a few families you're allowed to breed with. And this is some real, like, straight-up high-class pimping going on. Yeah, high-class pimpery with the hoe stable and all that. Like, you gotta sell your daughters to the right pimp, basically. That's kind of the whole point of the chivalry going on. And to be fair, some of these people were able to meet these people and talk to them. Yes, you had the option of meeting the family and let's go to one of their charity ball things or whatever the fuck you call it. Yes, they could meet each other first. You could see if they actually like each other. Some people did that, but that's a luxury, right? Yeah, in a lot of cases, it's like, no, we need to get this done. And, of course, realize these girls didn't have any internet or TV, right? To a lot of them, they were excited about this because they could leave their bedroom and go do something, get out in the world and be a queen of some country somewhere, right? I'm sure they heard many tall tales of crazy bitch queens doing all sorts of weird shit, so they're like, oh, totally, I can go do that, and maybe not. Some of them did, some of them didn't. I'll get back to the Homo sapien thing, but no, I'm sure this is a great way to help understand why this genetic distinctions, whatever it is, if we're talking about it and hoping, right? Get rid of some of the ignorance, dog. No, the fucking bullshitsu, dog? Yeah, no, okay, sorry. Yeah, straight up. Russia is a little isolated. Maybe it was a little hard to get up to one of those charity balls. I don't know if you've seen Anastasia, the fucking movie, Disney movie. I don't remember most of it, but that's a great little, Disney shot into the fantasy world of that royal family way up in the fucking snowy mountains up somewhere near Siberia. And that was, I guess, not famous, but that was the Tsar royal family we knew of right going up to World War I, before Tsar Nicholas, or I think that was his name, one of the few healthier guys in the family, their general of the army or whatever. Yeah, of course, the king's son. Yeah, the king's son, straight up. And it didn't last too long. Country, like, rebelled against the king right after he left, but yeah, no, we're getting there. What I'm saying is, Russia came down to a point where it was more difficult to trade daughters than it was for anyone else. And yeah, they ended up just use your own family. How long can you keep that up, right? Oh, your cousin, oh, your sister, oh yeah, your mom, oh god, yeah. They had to resort to some desperate shit. Yeah, let's move on from that. But you've probably heard jokes about meeting someone who turned out to be your cousin or whatever. Yeah. You'll probably get the idea. You can draw a sort of, graph or whatever between the Tsar family of two inbred and the Mutt Heinz 57 of multi-bred. I don't even know how far, but that's kind of a range you can work with. And yeah, like, whatever, you may very well end up with a third distant cousin of a cousin at some point. Our genetics are diverse enough that shouldn't have any adverse effects on your genetics. Like, you can basically have a kid with your, second cousin or whatever, and it's no worse than having a kid with anyone else. It only seems to become a problem with fitting the Lego pieces together when you're down to only 2 pieces. Yeah, you know what I mean? If there's not enough pieces left. And I know that's cutting it close, because basically, keep in mind, doing that once shouldn't have any adverse effects. If you do it again with another cousin and down the family tree, yeah, we don't really know. Has this been tested? Well, if you look at Russian history, yeah, that's about as close as I can think of off the top of my head. There may have been maybe the Nazis did experiments on twins. Yeah, they had some crazy, weird experiments going on. I hope you realize Hitler's fascination with weird experiments is exactly why they lost, basically. Instead of focusing on V-rockets and shit, like, yeah, sorry. Alright, so let's go back to our corncob pipe professor. He's been patiently waiting, drinking some brandy. He barely noticed we were gone for an hour. That's how casual this guy is. Rather. Did you find out where the fucking human became human? Africa's our best guess because of some skeleton we found. There's a couple really old skeletons. You can probably look up oldest human skeleton or something. And it's debatable, is this really a Neanderthal? Ooh, the skull shape, yeah, ooh, it might be a Cro-Magnon, yeah, ooh, that could be Homo erectus, yeah, exactly. It's not like any douchebag can just walk up and be like, yeah, that's the one, yeah, no, you need a damn good paleontologist, not an archaeologist. Guy shows up, he's like, I thought this was an ancient aliens. Oh, fucking hell, dude, did you bring a paleontologist, motherfucking Ross from Friends? Remember, you might even have it in mind, our labeling of these skeletons and what we've found, of course there might be some little mistakes. Yeah, one guy might have not measured something properly. Maybe that Cro-Magnon was of Homo erectus. Ooh, yeah, there's bound to be one little mistake like that. So keep in mind our other label of species, that species can successfully breed together. Any member of a, animal species can breed with another member of an animal species. I realize that some bacteria reproduce differently. Yeah, that's why they're bacteria and not animals. Right? Yeah, you're starting to get it. So you might be thinking, oh, what if these people actually were Cro-Magnon? Even if they were, they would still be the same species, which would mean the Cro-Magnon label was wrong, not the species label, right? Those two labels would contradict each other, and we'd have to decide which one was a mistake. One of them's a secondary label, one's a primary label. Is if you can breed with the same thing, if you can breed with someone, they are by default within your species. That's why the whole concept of breeding with aliens is like, you take a step back and think about what you're saying. No, whatever, I can just shove my cock in anything and a bunch of things will pop out. Careful with that attitude, bud. I'm not saying you should never breed with an alien, just keep in mind it isn't much different than breeding with an animal, right? Yeah, it's not necessary. I guess I wouldn't call it bestiality, but alienality, yeah, right? It's a step in the other direction, but it is still very much a step in a direction. And, of course, when we say breeding, we mean successfully reproducing, like children that aren't gonna be Tsars of Russia. Yeah, you may think, oh, I found a thing where a guy fucked a dog and a kid came out. It's like, yeah, okay, how's that kid doing? Yeah, how's the kid doing in school there? Yeah, no, kid ain't in school, is he? Yeah, no, think about those things when you see them. So yeah, doesn't mean it's impossible, it's just very unlikely, and if it does happen, even that might not necessarily work the way you want, right? Things aren't just always gonna work the way you want them to. The universe isn't that convenient. I know someone's gonna be like, oh, you're wrong, I can disprove you. Well, go ahead, go chase Colonel Hoppy to the fucking headquarters there and fall in another one of his rabbit holes. Yeah, if someone does successfully have, a healthy child with an alien, we'll have to come up with a whole bunch of labels for this shit, right? That's the fun part. So yeah, by now you probably understand why, yeah, even fucking in Africa there, yeah, it's our best indication so far, that's the thing. I'm pretty sure that's the oldest Homo sapien that we could define as Homo sapien. There was another one found near fucking, yeah, Mesopotamia, or, yeah, exactly. Ooh, this one's, and of course, again, how old is it? Ooh, carbon dating, good old carbon coal ion engine. God damn, you probably even know what carbon dating is now because of that, if you've watched that part, whatever. If you've been here the whole time, you can always go back and watch again if you want to, right? God damn, if you want to. Yeah, carbon dating. Well, sir, we gotta talk about carbon dating now. So now, when some hipster douchebag's like, oh, they carbon dated this asteroid, it's like, dude, you can't do that, bro. It's not the same thing. I'm not saying you can't analyze the asteroid and find out how old it is, but carbon dating is another one of those labels we create. And again, if it's different, it's different. I'm not saying they're not doing it, but to just say they carbon dated it, yeah, no, they didn't breed a bull shih tzu, man. That's not a bull shih tzu. Oh, man. Right, so, oh my god, what is it? Even if you watched the last part, you might, oh, did I miss it? No. Carbon 14, carbon 13, carbon 12. It's different ions of carbon. You're like, oh god. All it means is there's a couple more neutrons in there. Oh, remember the fucking Heisenschroeder neutrons? Yeah. Carbon 12 has a weight of 12, so there's 6 neutrons. If you got your periodic table on you. Oh, yeah, whatever. They're easy to find. Oh, if maybe you're worried you might get a fake one, you go back to where I showed you a real one and make sure yours is real, or take a screenshot of the one in that episode. Oh man, Dr. Scientist can't take a screenshot. Come on. That's something you can safely Google, how to take a screenshot. Anyway, where were we now? Yes, where's my fucking brandy? Right. So, carbon dating. Yeah, carbon 12 is like normal carbon, whatever. Oh, the majority of carbon is carbon 12. That's all that means. It's the most stable form within our environment. Oh, right? In our environment, and wherever the asteroid came from is a different environment. When you carbon date something, yeah, you're starting to catch on, maybe. Carbon-14 can be created. There's a number of reasons it happens, either from if it shot out of a volcano, if it was degraded by some bacteria, like a fossil, right? Different things can cause carbon to have a couple extra neutrons in it, so it weighs 13 or 14. Oh, one more neutron, two more neutrons. Those are the common ones, 12, 13, and 14, which means normal amount of neutrons, one extra neutron, two extra neutrons. You might find a 15, you might find an 11. That's outside the normal usual range. So, when you carbon date different things, like a rock will have a certain amount of carbon-14 in it compared to all the rocks around it, unless that rock came from somewhere else, like outer space. And, right, and once, if something within our environment, our atmosphere, whatever, as soon as it dies, it will start to decay, and the carbon-14 particles will, slowly turn into carbon-13 and then carbon-12 over many years. And it's a very consistent rate, like a clock ticking down, yes, so you can compare how long it took for that much carbon-14 to degrade. But you can only do that if you can compare it to the carbon-14 around it, like in what environment, basically, right? So, with an asteroid, yes, you can measure how fast things are decaying, but you have nothing to compare it to. It's the only sample you have. That's why it's a little different. It's like you started a new clock, but it's just one stopwatch instead of an actual clock. And I know someone might think, well, could you compare it to other asteroids? Even you know better, man. Come on, where did that asteroid come from? Outer space? Yeah, space is big, buddy. The difference between this asteroid or that asteroid is probably a lot bigger than the difference between you and me, right? Think about it. So yes, we do compare different asteroids, but it's very arbitrary from the get-go. Yeah, we can't do a carbon dating between two different asteroids that came from fucking different galaxies or some shit. Like, we record the information, we make our measurements, but we can't do much with those measurements until we have more to compare them to. That's why we do all this shit, right? Yeah, it's starting to make sense. So it's not just a fucking diddly scattered office of nothing. So yeah, that's as much as I really know about carbon dating. That's how they measure it, but I don't know the exact procedure. Like, they'd probably have to take samples from each, thing, right? A sample from the corpse, a sample from the areas around it, compare how much, samples of carbon-14, they gotta dilute the shit in acids and measure it, and yeah, it's probably a lot of, like, intense lab work, right? So, to just tell them, go carbon date something, it's like, that's a lot of fucking work, buddy. I hope, like, goddamn, I don't think, have you done that much work in your life? So, I'm not saying it's not worth considering. Just don't expect everyone to just carbon date everything you want them to, right? Yeah, it's not as easy as it sounds. Or maybe it's harder than it sounds. But of course, carbon dating these, oldest human skeletons, of course someone wanted to do that. That was a priority in some level. And you probably understand why. It's a little vague. It's not an exact measurement. To say about 40,000 years old, about, was it 41,000 years old? Oh, well, 41,050? Yeah, right. Pretty much anyone understands that. That's a rough approximation. And even when you get to, not that rough, it's fair, it's closer than saying 30,000 or 50,000, right? Yeah, of course. That's, maybe we're wrong. Of course maybe we're wrong. But yeah, we gotta work with what we got. So, the one, there was one near Mesopotamia, like the Middle East, the Garden of Eden, of course, that's our second best guess, I think, the second oldest skeleton. How much older? Ooh, again, it's, we're getting down to the wire with that, to where you're approaching Colonel Hoppy's minefield if you go Googling too hard into that. Because, of course, you're gonna get veered off course. Once you get to a point where we have no more definitive answers, that's where people really want the answers, right? Oh, God. Oh, there's two, running theories. Which side are you on, man? Hey, this is the fun part, right? Which sounds more logical to you? I've thought before it's possible different, like, Cro-Magnons or whatever, Neanderthals, whatever was right before Homo sapien. They might have started evolving in different places, and yes, that's possible. Keep in mind, it would be quite unlikely for two different Cro-Magnon to randomly evolve into the same Homo sapien. See what I mean? It's possible, but astronomical. whereas it's much more likely that they spread from a single, you need two, right? How did two of them become the same species, right? Yeah, that's getting down to the Bible, right? Careful. Well, this is probably the easiest way to start thinking about how evolution really works. Right? Yeah, even religious people study it, right? Because, well, yeah, it's one of God's craziest tools, right? Oh my God, you want to see how brilliant God is? Fucking look at evolution. Fucking pushed a button and walked away, didn't even have to do anything, right? Even I don't know everything about it, of course. I don't know, the best way to explain it is just thinks on a simple level, like... Oh God, was that Simpsons? I'm sorry, this is straight out of The Simpsons. He's like, have you ever wondered why tall people have tall children? Or why Chinese people have Chinese children? Straight up, right? You know, it's a dumb joke, but straight up, is it a coincidence that Chinese people have Chinese children? If they randomly have, like, a white kid, you think someone's gonna be suspicious, right? Oh, it is possible. I know, yeah, this is gonna sound like a cop-out. No, it is possible to have, like, a recessive genes that pop up years or generations later, like the pendulum effect. You're usually more like your grandparents than your parents. Kind of goes back and forth, right? If one of your grandparents was like half Native American or something, yeah, you might look more Native American than your parents do, or fucking whatever. That can very well happen, yes. If two white people have a brown child, before you panic, straight up before you panic, check both of your parents. If one of their grandparents is even partially a quarter anything, that could be why. And I know, you know, these are dumb jokes, but they're true, and really, you're probably even starting to realize how evolution works. It's a slow, gradual process over many generations. You do not just sprout wings like an X-Man. That is a mutation, not a evolution. Yeah, it's important to distinguish, right? You see the Alien movie, oh, he evolved into a thing. It's like, no, he mutated, and the closest thing we know of to mutations like that in nature here is like a butterfly. Yeah, a caterpillar morphs into a butterfly. That's a mutation that's already pre-programmed in its DNA. And then, of course, there are, you know, quote-unquote random mutations. We just know less about them. We don't know how random they are, of course. It's not totally random. Otherwise we'd see the crazy pink elephants flying around. Yeah, no, it's, right? No, it's not entirely random. It's like rolling dice, and it's like rolling Yahtzee, like 30 dice at once, right? Yeah, it's a lot of fucking dice. And of course, when we start looking at evolution, what are we doing? Like any science, we are measuring observations. When we say, oh, this monkey evolved into this person, I know how that sounds. Yeah, no, a monkey didn't just give birth to a fucking human one day. Yeah, no, brah, no. So it came from people fucking monkeys? That doesn't even make sense. Who fucked the monkey, right? Oh, humans came from a human fucking a monkey? That's stupider than chicken and egg thing. No, I hope you realize how paradoxical that is. Yeah, how could that even start happening if you needed a human in the first place? Where did that human go? Oh God, where did that guy? Yeah. We'll try to avoid that. Hey, we'll talk about the Big Bang some other time. Oh, Big Bang Young, she's a very famous Asian porn model. I don't know how famous she is, but anyway. Yeah, no, right, we can only do so much at once. You really want to learn all the science in one day? Oh, God, here's the Matrix plug. I know science now. Show me. Oh, man, not quite, no. So, yeah. I mean, you're probably slowly getting it. When we talk about evolution, it's a little vague, to say the least. All we can do is measure the observations. We can measure the fucking skeletons and carbon date them, and ooh, how much different is this one than that one? Where do we really draw the line between a Neanderthal and a Cro-Magnon and a Homo sapien? Yeah, right? Did a Cro-Magnon just give birth to a Homo sapien one day? Probably not. Yeah. Where do we draw that line? It's kind of a gradient. It kind of just gradually turns into the other. There is no definitive line apart from the fact that certain traits become obsolete or recessive or no longer come up in the gene pool, basically. And if you're gonna start asking, well, who decides what traits become obsolete? Well, bitch, it's you! Yeah, you decide who you fucking have, or maybe not, sorry, I apologize. Someone One of the people involved in the sex, or the deciding of the sexual intercourse, perhaps the king is pimping off his daughters, whatever. One of us decides who pimps out who to who, and depending on who you have sex with, yes, they're traits of that child. Yeah, exactly. Those are the Yahtzee dice that are getting tossed into the arena every time. And really, that wasn't part of my notes, but no, that's a great little example of when you get down to the Tsar family of Russia with not enough genetic traits. They don't have enough dice, basically. They're playing Yahtzee with one dice. One die, yeah, exactly. Whereas, closer to the Heinz 57 side of the scale, you get 57 dice. Yeah, better chances of rolling those sixes, right? So it's not like mutated into some crazy thing. It's just a better chance of not rolling all ones or all low numbers that are going to get you born with genetic defects and stuff. Now, this is not definitive 100% Google checkmark proof, but it is commonly, observed that the more a species interbreeds with other members of its species, the faster you'll evolve, basically. And again, it's not just one-to-one, it's a gradual process. Eventually, like, if you isolated a certain group of people, such as Australian natives, we're gonna look into this as we move forward. They are a very isolated gene pool, to say the least. And I guess you could say eventually we may slowly evolve so much that we can no longer reproduce with that specific gene pool. They will become the previous Homo sapien, and we will eventually become Homo fucking Neoterra, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of Australian natives. Yeah, right? Oh man, who am I supposed to feel bad about? I don't know, you can go ask him. He'll say, Wamba Wappa Wamba, something like that. They got they got this wampa wampa language. It's pretty cool, but I don't know what the fuck they're saying. Yeah. Okay, so this is where we can actually get into who's who in this fucking Neanderthal caveman world. And yeah, so I mean, really, I don't know how much closer to try to guess or put my finger on it. Basically, it's not so much that one human just popped out or two humans popped out. It's like the gene pools that obviously different Cro-Magnon were breeding with different Cro-Magnon, and within the areas of traffic, basically like the Middle East and the Silk Road and the fucking near Greece and Eastern Europe and North Africa, yeah, Egypt, yeah, exactly. This was the hub, the central hub of a lot of this population. And I would guess that we slowly, gradually became as we are now, and the more isolated groups of Cro-Magnon and fucking Neanderthals were isolated long enough over millions of years to a point where we could no longer breed with them and we're a different species. And yeah, I know that sounds kind of weird. Like I said, I don't even want to stamp a fucking seal of approval on it. It's a theory, basically, but, you know, based on observation. Because you might think, okay, wouldn't even the other Neanderthals also evolve in, right? Why do we get to evolve into this species and they didn't? Again, it's numbers. The more times you roll the dice, yeah, we're throwing a lot more dice around. And they're playing a smaller gene pool. It evolves much slower. So yes, the Australian native gene pool there may, over millions more years, maybe 5 million years from now, they'll evolve as well. Slowly, gradually. They're not just going to start popping aliens out one day, right? That's not how that works. And, of course, it's dependent on the environment, which traits are beneficial. Eventually, climbing around in trees is less important than running around in a field. We need longer legs. It's not so much you sprout longer legs one day, but you might choose to have sex with someone with longer legs because they are better hunters, whatever, right? Yeah, and then your kids have... Why do tall people have tall kids? Not always. But those traits, those dice will be rolled more frequently, and you are more likely to come up with those results over many millions of years to a point where that thing has such short legs and such long arms and so much body hair that it is a monkey, and you are a tall-legged, hairless man running through a field instead of climbing through the fucking jungle. And I know, right? I know, it sounds too stupid to say a monkey turned into a human. I laugh when I hear that too, okay? It's like, I know how stupid that sounds. And it is very simplistic to just say it that way. It takes millions of years to come to fucking Neanderthal, and then millions more years just to become a fucking Cro-Magnon, and then millions of years just to slowly lose a bit more body hair, right? Yeah, it takes a long time. Might as well cover this now. Well, how many millions and millions and millions and millions of years? 400,000 million approximately. Whoa, how do you know? I know the Bible says some guy used to live 900 days. Here, yeah, you might even get it by now. Remember fucking King Henry's imperial fucking Dutch French math units? Yeah, pounds. How many pounds in an ounce and foot pounds in a torque? Yeah, right. People count the number in math units differently. How many cubits is that? Fucking hell. There's still debate over how big a cubit is. That's another math unit. Some of them are like Roman math units in the Bible. Back when we used fucking Roman numerals, like, you know, you gotta get rid of that shit. We don't use those math units anymore. So I don't know how big a cubit is, right? Really, and then those math units they use in the Bible, they could be very different than the counting units that we use today. So we gotta kind of try to account for that when we think of how old some of this stuff is. I'm pretty sure we still used miles back then, because that's what a milestone is. They'd put a stone every mile on the highway and, you know, mark it so you knew how many miles away you were. Anyway, the Earth itself is approximately 4.5 billion years old, from carbon dating, right? We don't know exactly, but it's probably more than 4 billion and less than 5 billion. That's, yeah, it's as best as we can guess based on geology, based on astronomy, astrology, fucking all sorts of shit. All the numbers, all the casino receipts point to this, approximately this area of time. And the sun would be a bit older, right? The Earth is 1 billion or something years older than the sun, so... And we're expecting another 1 billion or so years before the sun gets so hot that we will either have to move the Earth or hopefully the Earth moves. We're gonna have to figure something out by then. And yeah, it can be hard to quantify how long 1 billion years is. Yeah, right? When you hear that, it's like, okay, that's a long time. That's why counting, 100 years of history is snap your finger in that sense. And yeah, like you've probably heard, like, the amount of time that humans have been on Earth is like a fraction of a hair if you put it on a scale or whatever, like a ruler of time from beginning, the 4 and so billion years ago to today. Yeah, our human history is a sliver of a little fraction of a hair on the front of it. But I mean, whatever, it is what it is. Everything has to start somewhere, right? Even the dinosaurs started at a sliver of time, so you don't just, that's a hipster douchebag double combo to leave it at that and say, whoa, fuck everyone, we haven't been... That's like bullying the new kid at school, basically. Fucking kid, you just got here. Clearly, there's things we should change. That's kind of half of why I'm doing all this, but whatever. No, I'm not here to fix everyone's problems. I'm just fucking, here's some information in case you were wondering what all these fucking problems were. The hell is all this radiation coming from? Should ask the god. So yeah, I mean, the best thing we can do is, time is relative, right? Yeah, I know that sounds like some crazy Einstein shit, and it is, but it's as simple as you want to make it, right? Let's compare this to that, right? Relatively speaking, most of our human history, like recorded human history that we can fall back on is as far as Egypt, basically. When I was, the oldest civilizations, oh, what about Egypt? Egypt ain't what it used to be, but sorry, yeah, right. It's still there, straight up. Egypt is the oldest country on the earth, because the one country is still Egypt, right? That's pretty fucking crazy to think about. It's been there about 10,000 years, and it's the same country. It's still Egypt, and yeah, they basically do whatever they want within their own border. I don't think anyone, like, UN rolling in there telling them what to do. It's like, buddy, we've been here longer than anyone, sorry. Yeah, remember, when we talk about the oldest nations, we're talking about countries, nations, and what makes you so civilized? Well, it means people in 2, 3, 4, 5 different cities are speaking the same language. And it does make a slight difference between this, this village and that village have any division between them. It's not, you're almost there, but not quite. And I mean, it's hard to say with native, like, Aztec empires and stuff, and again, carbon dating some of this stuff, it goes back thousands and thousands of years, so it's hard to, again, we get into some fine lines. I will include them, but keep in mind that that was almost entirely isolated until quite recently. So, yeah, we can tack that on the corkboard as we go. So, really, the point we want to nail down here before getting into actual nations, and back in the good old days of cavemen and their villages, this also includes why humans so easily dominated Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon. You can probably imagine tools and weapons and all that. No, they had tools, they had spears and clubs and fire. Yeah, exactly. We weren't that much more advanced. We just had a bigger population. We reproduce faster, basically. So there's more of us, and we grow up faster, and we're running around faster and crazier, basically. I guess all I'm saying is, even if the whole process is gradual, there is a certain point where this, more evolved species, still basically the same species, but getting a little more separated, once that conquest, once that division happens, yeah, you get it. We wipe out the old ones, kill all the Neanderthals and fucking Cro-Magnon, and now we are very much a different species at this point. It literally kind of killed it. So that's why these are somewhat vague definitions, but that's what we've measured so far. And what I'm saying is, once that starts happening and once that's over, that's it. The new species is that's where the humans come from, basically. So anyone across the whole area from fucking Europe to Egypt to the Silk Road up and over Siberia into Native American territory, that kind of, once that starts and has been in effect, that's where everyone else sprouts out from. That's where the seed has been planted. Excuse me, too much brandy. Yeah, as best as I can guess. If you got a better idea, shoot for it. But I'm just saying that's where the vague gradient sort of clears up some of the fog, and you can start measuring a little more precisely, because yes, once this class of human, whatever the fuck you want to call it, annihilates all of its competition and starts reproducing from its own cities, nations, you probably get the point. That's the closest we can hit, like, a pinpoint of where humanity starts, but realistically, humans have been around millions of years before then. We can't even nail down exactly when, so I can't answer that yet. We'll look into it later. We're gonna have to start with civilization and nations and my god. Yeah, God, motherfucking Amon-Ra, that's it, man. Really, this is part of how we defeated all of our competition in that sense, is our civilization. That's exactly it. We are more communal. We communicate more. Yeah, we learn languages and writing and artwork, and I mean, cavemen would draw things on walls, but that's exactly it. We got better at it, and we're better at communing in larger communes and communism. Yeah, we're good at communism, exactly, straight up. And cavemen were very anti-communist. The Neanderthals didn't like communism, so they had to get wiped out. That's why they were in such small, isolated groups. That's why they lost. They simply did not have the numbers of the communist Amon-Ra regime of humanity. So, I mean, yeah, Egypt is the oldest civilization in the sense that they were the best at recording their history. They got that shit rolling soonest, it would seem. I'm pretty sure Chinese people were writing scrolls, but the scrolls didn't last as long as the Egyptian hieroglyphs on their... They were carved in stone, yeah, exactly. They had that shit rolling, according to our carbon dating, it would seem, yes. And even, whatever, comparing dates and measurements of... Because, yeah, you gotta realize Egypt is very close to Greece and the Middle East there. It's smaller than the US border or whatever, and it's like going from one state to another. And yeah, Egypt was quite successful for thousands of years. Yeah, it was the heart of civilization. It's had quite a long-standing history that most other nations never even came close to. But keep in mind, it never really expanded very far. They had some influence into Africa, but not very far. Africa's really big, of course. And the climate changes a lot. Yeah, there's big differences between the desert ones. I'm sure if some of their scouts approach the jungle and they're like, yeah, fuck this, dude, we're going back to the desert. I know what you're thinking, but like, really, would you rather live in a fucking African jungle or the desert by a nice river near Greece and Baghdad? And yeah, let's go back to there. So yeah, I mean, there were big African tribes in the southern areas, but it would seem that they never had the same cohesion that Egypt did. The Egyptian empire was very much an empire, had its fucking, the whole thing is the priesthoods, the religion. That was our first government, basically, our first method of managing so many different things in one single overlord, right? Instead of just chieftains of different tribes. It was like, yeah, Amun-Ra, fucking pharaoh of the whole fucking empire kind of thing. So yeah, as we move forward, I mean, yeah, I clearly have my problems with certain religious things, and, Pope Don Diablo and all that, but keep in mind, it's one of the few reasons we got here in the first place, is that unity. Regardless of what united us, right? We might find better reasons to unite, but religion did unite us into such large civilizations that's how we got here. So yeah, try not to forget that. So, what I'm going to do now is, we'll take a stroll down the Silk Road. Yeah, we'll start here in Egypt, we're going to move up to Greece and Eastern Europe quick, and then roll on down through Baghdad, all the way to China, and then down into the Aztec area, and goddamn, by the time we're done, we'll just quickly move forward to World War I. And then there'll be World War I. Everything will get slow and black and white. And as we do this, I'll point out the, according to I don't know how outdated this is, I think it's still a standard that we go by as far as guessing, but as we were looking at how, you know, it wasn't just 1 or 2 humans that popped out one day, it's the whole species gradually became, yeah, we've been over it, I'm just keep that in mind. All I'm saying is, there are 4 sort of groups, yeah, yeah, like subgroups, races, basically. Yeah, if you want to break it down into races, there's 4 races. You might be thinking, oh wait, what? Yeah, which one, which side are you on? There, oh man, I'm gonna give them the proper name. This is proper scientific names, alright? You can't bust me for this one. Look it up in a real textbook. There are Caucasoids, Mongoloids, Negroids, and Australoids. Those are the Australian natives. Yes, those are the 4 different isolated groups of Homo sapiens that came out of what we have. So, like, Egyptians are, like, half black, half Caucasian, I guess. Greeks are about mostly Caucasian, bit of black, and then Mongoloid is coming in down the Silk Road from, I don't know, Mongolia? No, fucking China, basically, right? And then, yeah, that's essentially where North Americans come from, as far as we can tell. There may, you know, who knows what else may have happened back there. But, right? Could have been a 5th one that no one knew about, yeah, right? Holy shit. Maybe it's just an offshoot or something close, like the next branch over, right? Yeah, we don't know enough yet. And then, yeah, I get those, when I say Australian natives, I mean in Australia. I don't know how they got there. Maybe the ocean was a bit lower during an ice age and they walked across fucking Indonesia and got stuck there. I don't know. Maybe go ask them. They'll go wampa wampa. And so, yeah, those Australian natives, that very small isolated group, is very much its own separate race, which means there's really only 3 races left for everyone else, unless you are an Australian native going wampa wampa with a didgeridoo or some shit. Yeah, that's where they got didgeridoos from, I think. So yeah, for everyone else, you're either black, white, or Chinese. Basically, those are the 3 options, or mixtures, right? So I mean, yeah, when you think of, like, Egypt and Greece, they're very close to each other, and they interbred at some, yeah, they were like one of those love affair relationships between nations, yeah, like Canada and the States or whatever. That's a little different. That's more like a getting married and realizing you want a divorce. No, I'm joking. Whatever, yeah, nations have these little relationships where they become like codependent kind of thing, where, yeah, this sort of mishmashes into one nation, but not really, they're still quite distinct. The only thing separating them was a bit of the Mediterranean Sea, and it's a short enough distance you can float a raft across it, pretty much. So, I mean, that's how you end up with, like, Latino people with darker skin and the whiter people from the white man tribes. Those are like the black guy tribes down in South Africa. They didn't start, like, see what I mean? Egypt sprouted up as the empire, while the rest of Africa was still a tribal. And Greece popped up as their own, what the fuck do you call it? Aristocracy. A little different than an empire, we'll get into it. You've heard a little bit, but we'll talk about it a bit more. Anyway, its own civilization, while the rest of Europe was still tribal. You know, right, you probably get the idea. It's the same with China. China starts its own little Han dynasties. I don't know which dynasty it was, man. Qin. Oh yeah, Qin dynasty, that's why it's China. Well, yeah, we'll get into it. We're not there yet, right? Holy fuck, Mr. Chin. They got more chins than Chinatown. Either way, once again, their dynasty pops up while everyone else in the area is still tribal. So, yeah, they're still Mongoloids, Chinese, whatever, they're just not part of China yet. And over by Greece, yeah, there's white man tribes all over the place, they're still tribal. Yeah, they're not there yet, bruh. No, don't worry, we'll get there, bruh. And same with Egypt, of course. There's their empire, and the rest of them are still tribal. North America, Aztec, Inca empires, everyone else is still tribal. So that's, I'm not saying they never got into doing anything else, I'm just saying that's where it seems to have started. And coming back down to the start of our journey, in the Middle East, it's Mesopotamia and Jericho and the biblical territories. Yes, I'm sure you've heard of these things, perhaps or perhaps not. Yeah, we'll get there, brah. Yeah, but Egypt and Greece. Greece was an aristocracy, which is, I've been over this, it's ruled by fraternities, basically, barely joking, the frat house in the university. They're in charge, because they got all the science and all the soldiers and all, right? That's where all the, like, rich assholes go hang out and do their shit, so by default, they own everything and are in charge of everything. You've probably heard that it's where democracy came from, but really it was only democracy within the fraternity. Yeah, exactly. You gotta be in the frat house to vote. And I guess the only good positive thing I can throw on it, so, you know, I'm not gonna say anything good about my ancestors or whatever, it's, at least it was something of a meritocracy. You still had to be good at science or be a good soldier or whatever the frat house was. As hard as you know, buying your way in, you can buy your way close, but in the end, you're going to be at the bottom of the ladder unless you actually know something or are good at something or whatever. So, whatever. I'm not sure. We can get into how everyone else did things. I'm not saying no one else is good at anything. That's all I'm saying is that's basically the only positive aspect of their aristocracy. Every other part of it was like douchebags, slavery, fucking rich assholes. Yeah, exactly. So at least it was somewhat meritocratus. And of course, they were still religious. Yeah, no, they had their pantheon of gods. They had temples and festivals. They even did animal sacrifices and shit. Oh yeah, of course. They were a little more skeptical of things like calendars and time. I mentioned before that Kronos was like their not the devil, but like Kronos was the unbreakable force of nature, like time. It's the one thing they couldn't overcome, basically, naturally. But what I'm saying is, yeah, they had trouble with calendars, and it took them a while to get used to this sort of thing. So yeah, they would sacrifice goats and shit and be like, God damn it, just give us a good harvest season kind of thing. Egyptians were more about the Nile River. Yeah, occasionally they'd throw someone into an alligator, whatever, man. Fucking, that's what the priest said. What I'm saying is they're both religious, but Egypt was a fucking galactic empire of religion. Well, yeah, like Darth Vader up in this shit from the Temple of Gods. A very strict monarchy of religion in that sense. Whereas with Egypt, the temple is still somewhat secondary. People were still it was still something people thought about and were wary of and kept in mind. And there would occasionally be debates where they say, no, like the oracle, literally the fucking oracle, said we shouldn't do this. But when it comes down to it, it's up to the frat house to vote on whether to listen to the oracle or not, right? They could say no. And of course, sometimes there was conflict between fraternities. Oh my god, Spartans don't like Athenians or whatever, but I don't know, they did fight each other, but I don't know if they ever really got at each other's throats that badly, because, I don't know, I guess as soon as a battle was won or lost, they'd kind of be like, yeah, we won, like, yeah, it was kind of more of a competition. It's almost like a football tournament or something. It's like, damn, we lost that one. I don't want to make it sound too goofy. I'm sure it was serious for people, but, yeah, you probably see the difference between that and some other wars. So yeah, I mean, even between different parts of Greece, I don't know if they were ever truly united as one empire, right? Yeah, it was still different states. It was kind of like the United States with, like, 3 states. It's like the state of Sparta, Athens, and Macedonia. Those were like, or Macedon, those were the main ones. And I think they had some little offshoots in that, but those were always the 3 main states, basically. And yes, they would skirmish with each other occasionally, but I don't think they ever conquered the other completely. And when it came down to, yeah, Persians, oh my god, here come the Persians. Yeah, you saw that movie. The second one was really stupid, but the first 300 movie was pretty good. So, I know, we gotta get out the racist map. Literally, I'm drawing a map of races. Racism map. So yes, basically Egypt and Greece are both half and half. They're both half white, half black in a sense. The Greeks are more white and the Egyptians are more black, but those gene pools have very much mixed at this point. The Persian, yeah, what the fuck's going on here? I'm guessing they're also half black. I mean, come on, look at them. I wouldn't doubt that Persians are like, have some of all 3, like some Mongoloid, some white, and some black, or Chinese, like a mix of the 3, but couldn't say how much. It could be half black, half Chinese. Yeah, that's the mysterious zone, right? Right in the middle of it all. The Middle East, indeed. Yeah, that could be it. That could be their secret. They fucking mixed all 3 of them before anyone else did. That's why they're so crazy. And then, of course, there's quite a distinction dividing that from China. And I don't know, you might wonder why China is such a distinct, separated group. Mount Everest is right there. Yeah, it's Mount Everest and Nepal, the whole mountain region of Mount Everest is there. So that's a pretty big natural barrier between China and everything, the rest of Europe and Asia and all that, right? That's why there's such a big division there. So China has its own little area that it's been clustering and growing its civilization in. We'll get there, yeah. We'll get to that civil war that never ends. It's the civil war that never ends. Oh god, yeah, I know, basically. It goes on for thousands of years. It took a long time before China was one country. So when I say, you know, China or Chinese, whatever, I mean one of their dynasties, basically. Whichever dynasty was closest to that area. And so yeah, India is right there below Nepal and Mount Everest, so that would be like the trading hub or whatever. I'm sure there's passageways through there. You can go ask those Nepalese monks up on the mountain somewhere, they'll show you where it is. Oh man, bring some Sherpas with you. Yeah, no. I'm sure people came through there, so yes, there must have been some contact between there and trading and the Silk Road and whatnot. I'm just saying Persia is India, basically. That's India's right there. Persians would have came up from Iran. I know it's a bit fuzzy when you get into the whole Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan. Well, where the fuck am I at-istan? We're getting there. I think the heart of the Persian Empire, like their capital, was technically in Iran, but I'm pretty sure most of the population was basically Indian or like Sikh or whatever the fuck, I don't know, right? The proper name, Hindu, that area. But of course, it's like, it's hard to draw a hard, solid, definitive line. Yeah, ooh, yeah, I'm sure they intermingled a lot, right? But if you're looking at modern day India, that's probably the closest indication of like that gene pool, basically. So yeah, I mean, Persia is probably the first empire that went on a big conquest. Like, as far as I can tell, that was the first major, like, world war, basically, is World War Zero. We're gonna have to move up World War 1 and 2 a bit. No, or how about, like, World War prequel? Straight up, I don't know. It's the first time a big fucking empire tried to conquer the world, basically. Because they just kept going slowly here and there, and the next king wants to conquer another territory. Rome hasn't started yet. Yeah, Rome did that later. No, Greece is still, this is Sparta, bitch. We're just about there. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. A lot of historians like to play what-if games, like, ooh, what if this battle had been different? Ooh, what if Hitler won World War II? Yeah, well, we're not there yet, buddy. Hitler's still going ooga ooga in Germany somewhere. Sorry, we'll get there. But, no, this Persian invasion, yeah, man, what if? I was making fun of the Spartans before, because whatever, I would have been in the Athenian science frat house, that was what I would have been doing anyway. But my god, man, if that asshole didn't kick him into that well and they didn't do that, we might all be Persian right now, I'm not even joking. There was more conflict later, it's not like that's all it took, of course. But no, because you gotta realize there's no other empire, right? There's other people, but they're cavemen, they're just coming out of being cavemen. So these first empires clash with each other. Yeah, if Greece didn't, like, if they took over Greece, that would have been it. That was the only empire. Egypt would have barely been able to defend itself, and if Egypt and Greece fell from the Persian invasion, the whole world would have been theirs, everything except for China, basically. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think about, yeah, but I mean, really, if you think about that, if they just kept, because they would have had a lot of time, right? It's not like they would have had to rush. They could have taken their sweet-ass time and rolled in through Europe and Africa, and goddamn, the whole fucking world would have been Persian, dude. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, watch 300, it is a little exaggerated, but goddamn, that is probably like, you know, it's pretty epic, Last Stand. There is a good documentary about it, actually, I'll try to find it, because I got a good World War I documentary I'll pin to the comments or whatever you can watch for some shit. But yeah, anyway. No, the Persians, it's not like they defeated the Persians, right? No, they just stopped their invasion. And, sure enough, another guy wants, the next king is gonna try again. But at that point, yeah, like, you gotta realize, it's funny to think when you attack someone, you're thinking you're going to weaken them and try again. That only works if you're going to follow up very quickly. If you take too much time, you're just going to make them stronger. Because, yeah, guess what happens? It unites them, and, oh, now we're all one country. Yeah, of course they're all united now. Well, they still bickered and fought, of course, right? Yeah, well, what about this skirmish? Yeah, sure, there was another fucking Super Bowl tournament next year, but that's a little different. It's, of course, there's way more history you could get into. That's about all we need to cover for the basics here, but yeah, like, that whole relationship between the different states there and trading with Egypt and all that, I would think that after that first Persian invasion that scared the shit out of them, and they were each able to fend off their side, right? Egypt was up. Well, it was even harder to invade through Egypt. Yeah, they couldn't even barely make it that far. So it's like, yeah, if they had been successful in Greece, they would have came right down through Greece into Egypt. So yeah, no shit, it was very close. I'm not saying Egypt didn't do anything. It's just, yeah, they had a slight defensive advantage in that sense. They didn't have to do as much fighting just because of that. But, of course, there was more Persians later, right? No, straight up. These guys were like the fucking Empire of Death, or not. They were very civilized. No, this is the thing. I don't want to demonize them. Of course, they were a great, you know, luxurious living. I'm sure I would have been having a great time if I was in their empire. Yeah, no, it was a good place to live. I'm just saying, for everyone else, it was the fucking empire invading everything, of course. And they were even quite diplomatic in most cases, not all cases. Of course, after getting kicked into the fucking well by Leonidas or whatever, yeah, they were less diplomatic after that. But they would still, you know, offer surrender or whatever if you got one chance to run away, or to offer to buy cities, basically. Yeah, we'll buy your city instead of conquering it, or yeah, little things like that. So I can at least give them credit for having that. That is worthy of noting here. But anyway, the only other thing to keep in mind, the follow-up to that is, oh, Alexander the Great. You probably heard of this asshole. No, he's cool. I know, right? I'm just saying, he does live up to the legend as far as I can tell. Yeah, there's a reason he's popular. It's not just douchebaggery. Even if he was sort of a douchebag. Yeah, no, it was, again, meritocracy. He did earn it at least. He was, I think, a general's son. I don't even know if he was, because they didn't have a king, right? Yeah, exactly. He may have been, when they say king, it's like you're the governor of this side of the state kind of thing. It's not the same as being the pharaoh. And yeah, don't worry, we don't have to get into too much history, because obviously I don't know that much about him. Just that he did actually go through, like, you know, the military academies and stuff, so he was as trained as any other soldier. He still had to do all that shit. And he was good at it, and he was also educated by, I don't know if it was Plato or Zeno or one of those guys. One of those famous Greek philosophers was his teacher, so yeah, he was also very well educated. And he was, you know, this is the thing, he did actually do all that shit. So you get the idea. And I think it was, Macedon, he was Macedonian. Oh yeah, the lesser known until this point. And they were also the guys who invented the 20-foot spears, I mentioned that before. So yes, he had an army of dudes with 20-foot spears, like the phalanx formation you see in 300. But we got longer spears now, yeah. I know, right? The Spartans are more badass, but hey, sometimes a longer spear is all you need. It probably sounds stupid. Someone had to invent it? Like, no one's thought of this before? Hey, go build a 20-foot spear. Yeah. I don't know, you can get, like, 20-foot PVC pipes, or, like, whatever, pipes for, like, plumbing and shit. Yeah, you can get 20-foot, like, pipes. Even the plastic pipes. Pick it up like a javelin or something. Like, yeah, this is the thing. Even if you're grabbing it in the middle, that's only 10 feet, and then the guy behind you, yeah, no. When I say invented a 20-foot spear, I mean the front is approximately 20 feet, and then the back is only like a couple feet. It's weighted properly, so there's a heavier weight on the back, and of course it's probably really heavy, but I'm guessing it's a thin, light spear. Like, they have it weighted so it's just enough that a guy can still pick it up and use it. But at the same time, it's not nearly as, you know, you're not gonna stab around really fast like a fucking Shanghai Noon, or, yeah, it's not that kind of spear. It's like an artillery spear. It's, like, heavy, and you gotta hold it with both hands with your shield and shit and slowly mount up, and, this phalanx can't move very quickly. It walks forward slowly like a tank, and then it can turn like a tank and go the other way, and that's basically how you use it. Basically, that was most of his army, so, and he also had some cavalry and archers and stuff. But when, yeah, he conquered, I'm just about to get into his conquest. It won't even take that long. I'm just saying, if that's why most of it was, he was able to do most of it. It wasn't always effective. Sometimes they had trouble crossing rivers and stuff like that. But any open big battlefield, it was like, that was basically an unbeatable formation until they started running into things like, bigger artillery, like catapults and shit like that. Yeah, then they had to think of other stuff. Yeah, no, I mean, you've probably heard that he almost conquered the world. Basically, he wanted to go conquer Persia. Yeah, you could probably guess why. They were gonna go fuck over Persia for, what they did, obviously. Oh, you had tried to invade us, now we're gonna invade you. And he almost did. He almost got all the way there, but I guess it took a long time. I don't think he died of old age, but, like, it took years and years, and eventually, I don't know where he died, somewhere in the Middle East. Somewhere in the Middle East. I think he came back to fucking Egypt. Yeah, the guy went all over the place, man. I don't know where the fuck he was. I'm just saying, he fucking went on his own conquest, just like the Persians did to them, basically. Tried to reconquer all this territory and, push everyone else back. But then, I guess having gone back and forth in both sense, you have some intermingling from both sides. Like, at that point, all these cultures had met all these other cultures. That's kind of the first contact between each of them. Now that we had seen Persia and Persia had seen us, it's like we've all seen each other now. And all, except for China, yeah, they're the mysterious ones at this point, and we're just about to get there. But yeah, after he got as far as he could, after he died, it's like that's kind of it. It's not like they couldn't have kept going, but yeah, you gotta realize, it's like the Superman died, yeah, oh, what are we gonna do? This movie isn't the same anymore. Literally, it's kind of like that. So yeah, I mean, that's basically it for now. That kind of sets the stage for how that started, and then obviously other countries spring up and whatever, but that's kind of where the first civilizations branch out from, either Egypt or Greece or Persia for the Middle East, and then China, which is, let's go to China, and goddamn which dynasty is in charge now. Excuse me. More brandy, oh yeah, we're going to the Orient. Did you look up the Oriental tapestries? Oh, fucking hell, yeah. Here we are. Oh, yeah. No, China's been in a state of civil war for, like, thousands of years straight. It's the longest war ever is the Chinese Civil War to make China one country. And even when they weren't fighting, they were never completely united either until they were very close at one point. I think that's why the Han Dynasty is the only other name that I know of off the top of my head. I've heard it more than once. So I'm guessing that's when they were the closest at some point, but I don't know when the fuck exactly that was. And then, of course, there's Mongolians. Oh, fucking Mongolians, man. Yeah, Mongoloids, I'm guessing, were Mongolian. They were the barbarians of the north. And goddamn, yeah, they were fucking invading. They were their own civilization at that point, but it's hard to say. I would call them a civilization. The only reason it's hard to classify them officially as a civilization, they were basically entirely nomadic. They didn't have cities. Their cities they would pick up and put on their horse and ride off. So, but I guess Genghis Khan turned them into a civilization because he was the one who became a king of a nation, basically, and became an empire, exactly. That didn't happen till a bit later. That's, like, after the Crusades, but yeah, we'll get there. At this point, Mongolia is tribal, but yeah, straight up. Okay, at this point, Mongolia is still tribal, but they are advancing. They have science, and they're borderline. They're halfway between tribal and civilization. So yeah, China was fighting itself, different dynasties were fighting each other, and then Mongolians came in, just like the Persians came in against the Greeks and the Egyptians, right? Kind of similar, except it's a bit different, yeah. It's a bit different, I'll tell you. The Persians were terrifying, but it was much more official. It was an empire with an army, and the army invaded and was conquered, and then another army came. Yeah, no, Mongolians... Mongolians are Mongolians, man. They're everywhere, they're nowhere. You wake up, they're everywhere, and then tomorrow they're gone, and there's no one knows, man. These fuckers will ride in and ride out in 2 seconds, and everyone's dead, and it was probably like fighting ghosts or demons at first. I bet they didn't... No, I mean, they knew they were people, but hearing about it. I'm sure if you saw them, you would know they were people, but if you kept hearing about it, and then one day your village was burned down or something, I don't doubt some people thought they were like demons invading just at first, until it became more officially known what was actually happening. And, oh, those guys, yeah, the Mongolians, right. And I've seen a movie where, like, some general, the first guy they actually tasked with, okay, stop the Mongolians. Imagine that was your job. Oh, right. It fucking, oh, go to work. It's like, yeah, we need your help with something. You gotta go stop the Mongolians. Oh, boy. Well, I'm sure he's like, okay, this is my big chance. Yeah, no, someone tried to, got that shit all, the Great Wall. They eventually built a wall, but it took a really fucking long time. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight, that's for sure. And this ain't no Trump wall of fucking billboards. Taco Bell billboard wall. No. And I think even the guy building it knew it was going to take too long. He started with forts and stuff. That's the thing. They didn't just build one wall. He started with forts and castles and then connected them, and you know what I mean? Did sections at a time, and like, it was still useful as they were building it. They could still use sections of it to house soldiers to protect the other sections, and goddamn. And yeah, I mean, other people had to finish building it later. It took several generations. But that helped fend off the Mongolians, but they would still ride around, and yeah, that conflict went on for a while. But obviously the Mongolians, if they had succeeded, China would be Mongolia, right? So obviously they didn't succeed. The Chinese must have fought them off hard enough at some point. And well, you gotta realize, again, how big China is. It's fucking huge. So even if the Mongolians did invade China, it's like they might stop... This is the thing, their big conquest hasn't happened yet. It was Genghis Khan is when it got serious. That doesn't happen until much later. Back then, they were just small groups raiding into northern China, basically. They didn't bother going miles and miles and thousands of miles south. Like, they got to get back before winter or whatever. And then, of course, Japan was kind of its own. They were pretty close. I would say they were a civilization just after China, basically. Like, right, they were the next to spring up. But it's, again, that's kind of hard to say definitively, because it was split into many more smaller groups, right? Yeah, they were not a united nation until much later. But they were very much a civilization in the sense that they were all speaking pretty much the same language. I wouldn't doubt there was some differences between dialects in different regions, but they were just reaching that point too, where it was one, more similar culture. But not quite a nation in that sense. Yeah, that's kind of their borderline thing there, where I can't tell exactly. They had their own fucking giant civil war that happened with the Nobunaga Shijijonku fucking bunch of crazy-ass motherfucking samurai dudes. Yeah, that shit didn't happen until a bit later. They were still more feudal. Oh, I mean, feudal, no, they weren't feudal yet, sorry. That's exactly what that was. That's their version of knights, basically. Why we'd call it feudal Japan. So I don't know what was going on there before feudal Japan. I only know a little bit about the feudal part. So I'm guessing it was similar, just, a little less sophisticated. And then, of course, going on into America here, yeah, old school America, back in the fucking day, bud. Back in the fucking day, bud, yeah. As far as we can tell, before or after an ice age, you gotta realize, yes, there are ice ages on Earth. I can't tell you when the next ones might happen. But it doesn't just create ice sheets, it takes water out of the ocean or adds water to the ocean, depending on how much ice there is. So if there's a lot of ice, there's less water in the ocean, and ice sheets going on. Just like the Australian natives walking down to Australia, I don't doubt the natives in North America walked across wherever near the Bering Strait. It could have even been a bit further south. It's hard to tell exactly how fucking shallow the ocean is in some areas. Part of you've probably heard the ocean is like million miles deep. Not quite. I know, right? Think. There are areas like trenches, like the marinara trench. Marinara sauce is like pasta sauce. No, the Mariana Trench. If someone says marinara trench, tell them where did you get that pasta? The Mariana Trench is in the Pacific Ocean. It's like in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, like near Hawaii, and that goes down like 10 miles or some crazy shit like that. That's about as deep as we can tell so far. So yeah, 100 miles possibly, 1,000,000 miles, nope, not a chance, Rob Reiner. Maybe through like volcanoes, but yeah, no one's walking through a volcano, man. God damn. Yeah, they must have got there somehow, right? Whatever. Maybe they rode canoes. All I'm saying is they would have branched down from, yeah, all the way down into South America, and once again, the Empire, Aztec, Inca, I think those are the two big ones. I honestly don't know as much about this, those two names come to mind as the big ones, because of course there's a bunch of little ones. There's fucking 50 little ones too. What about the Mayamuans? What about Maseratis? Fucking I don't know, man. Oh, but yeah, those are the ones you usually hear, and when you look at any map, I've seen a couple documentaries and the maps will come up, and those are the ones that usually have the big chunks. One's like Central America and one's like South America, so Brazil, whatever. Can't remember, I don't know if it's Mayan or Aztec, or yeah, Mayans were a bit smaller, sorry, Mayans were also there. So Maya, Aztec, Inca, those were the trio, and I think Aztec was the big scary one. Yeah, that's the thing, that was the one everyone was scared of, was the Aztecs. And the Mayans and Incans were a bit smaller, and yeah, like, but kind of the ones fighting them. No, they, you know, they must have stood their ground enough to have had the big enough areas, right? But I'm pretty sure the Aztecs were the ones with the big, crazy temples. They all did sacrifices, but no, these guys were like, yeah, we got the biggest temple. And yeah, from whatever we can tell, this was just as ancient, pretty much. We can't tell exactly how old, but thousands of years at least. So within this vague time period of prehistory, whatever, the first civilizations, goddamn Aztecs running around. Apocalypto is a pretty good movie for this. I know it's one of Mel Gibson's acid trips, but it's probably the best one he had. I don't know. He's not in the movie. He directed a few movies. Sorry. The Passion of the Christ, that was not as good. That was a fucked up movie. It's a good movie, but it's not a good historical reference. Whereas, yeah, I mean, Apocalypto is probably not the best historical reference, but it's a good, like, I don't know, mood piece. Like, you get a good feeling for, like, how scary this empire must have been doing its thing, right? Yeah, it's dramatized, but I'm sure for some people that's how it felt. If you're curious, there's like a generic Hollywood movie about the Aztecs conquering fucking South America, and it's just this little tribe. It starts out with one of the smaller groups, nice peaceful little village, and then, oh my god, here come the Aztecs, and they fucking kidnap everyone, take them away to get sacrificed, and the one guy escapes, and he has to run and go fight some dudes in the jungle, and yeah, it's pretty fucking crazy. So, yeah, I know people, well, it's not historically accurate. Yeah, neither was 300, alright? I'm sorry, but it's still a pretty good movie. And as far as I can tell, they lasted for thousands of years until until the Spanish came. I'm pretty sure the Spanish, I know, didn't Vikings get there first? Think about what get there first means. It's a big place. Where is there? Who is they? Yeah, right? These are vague questions that need answers. So, yes, some Vikings did get to North America a bit earlier than the Spanish got to South America. But as far as I can tell, the Spanish are the ones who fought the Aztecs and, like, destroyed their whole civilization. Yeah. I don't think the Vikings destroyed their civilization, is what I'm saying. There may have been one or two of them within the ranks of these Spanish fleets, but no, it was the Spanish, empire, or whatever the fuck. We'll get into that later. That's around shortly before World War I, not too long before. But yeah, that pretty much finishes off this earliest snapshot. I mean, yes, of course there's tribes in North America and stuff, and there may even be, like different groups of them living in different areas, but they're still sort of nomadic and not really a nation. It's again, it's another one of those vague borderline areas where they're close, kind of like Mongolia or Japan or fucking even Vikings or something. Their culture is very similar. They speak similar languages, but they're not quite as united as the other empires and the fraternities. Yeah, right. Oh god. Yeah, I mean, that sort of sets the whole world stage for prehistory. Yeah, now you know which side you're on. Oh, when things start to get racist, hey, at least know which side you're on. Oh, man. And I mean, really, there isn't too much to look at moving forward. I'm just looking at global scale of conflict. Yeah, like Persian fucking invasion and Alexander invading Persia and fucking Aztecs invading fucking America and Mongolians invading China. That's pretty much most of it, up until the Romans. Oh, yeah, don't worry, I'm not gonna jerk off this dildo too much, because again, no, there isn't too much to say. Obviously, there's a bunch of politics and crap I could get into. I don't even have to say too much about, like, Caesar. The only reason Caesar is a good reference is because he's kind of marks the point between the old republic and the empire, like the Roman Empire. That's when a lot of the conquest happened, right? Yeah, for a long time it was kind of a smaller Roman republic. Of course there was still conquest, but it became more of a policy later on. That's kind of the thing. Caesar was a bit of an idealist, and after he died, it's like, well, might as well keep this train rolling, yeah. So yeah, like, really, that's all you really need to know for going forward from there. I've mentioned a little bit before, but yeah, basically, Rome started because a bunch of people left Greece. Greece was becoming a bit of a douchebag territory. And I guess Egypt sort of was too. Egypt was starting to fall apart, but not completely, but it wasn't quite the great empire it was before, and neither Greece was not quite the great aristocracy it was before. It was, you know, too aristocratic, whatever. Basically, if you weren't part of the fraternity, yeah, you're fucked. You're basically a slave, or they're tolerating your presence as a trader or something. So, trading goods, whatever. So no, a bunch of people fucking left and went to go found their own republic of a true democracy, whatever. That got corrupted and turned into an empire of whatever eventually, but for a few centuries, even before the Christ era, whatever the fuck you want to call it, BC and AD. So the old Roman Republic started before Christ, and it had become an empire just before the Jesus era. Like, the Julius Caesar thing happened right before Jesus, basically. I've mentioned this once before. And that's one reason Jesus was such a threat to some of them, is because he was sort of like Julius Caesar in that sense. He had that similar attitude, so people were wary of his presence. Yeah, of course, there's tons of politics you could get into. I'm sure you could find a lot of documentaries and stuff. But basically, yeah, it was a republic for centuries. It had started to get corrupt. It was turning into an aristocracy, of course. Wealthy elites ruling everything. Tends to happen with this sort of system, and so you gotta kind of update it. And eventually Julius Caesar, like, conquered the Senate with various means, not all brutal, but he ended up breaking some laws, and he, you know... It's an interesting story. We can get into it, but it's like, yeah, I'm sure we could. I don't want to waste hours with it, right? You could look up more about it if you want to be an easy thing to look up. But yeah, he got into politics, fucking became a general, and was also like a priest. Not a priest, like he was, but I doubt he spent much time like you know what I mean? He was a priest, politician who was managing temples and shit. So he had influence with the temples, he had influence with the military. It's kind of like Skyrim almost. What I mean is he'd go to each of the factions and complete the faction quests and become the guild master. Yeah, the fucking archmage, and oh, now I'm the fighters guild master. Oh, now I'm the fucking the dark hand listener. Yeah, now I got all the factions on my side. And he just took over the whole republic and turned it into an empire and became the emperor. And then he died, and then what do we do now? Yeah. And no, it wasn't an accident. He was murdered in the Senate by senators. He was stabbed to death by like 8 different people. If you want an example of a conspiracy, that's a good one to look up. And I mean, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of politics. It wasn't like some of the people who founded Rome were also Etruscans. There was different groups in Italy around the time, but they were much smaller groups that only consisted of a couple cities. They were just verging on civilizations themselves. They weren't the empires, like I said. That sort of thing is just starting to happen as Rome was just the biggest one in Europe at the time, of course. But yeah, we got smaller groups popping up all over the fucking place now. That's where everyone else can come in and say, what about us? What about you guys? Get ready for the fucking Legion, and if you're in Europe. And of course, the first major enemy that Rome faced was the Carthaginians. I'm sure you've heard me bitch about these guys before. Who the fuck are the Carthaginians? Well, they're African. Oh shit, yeah, careful, man. They straight up African. God damn, these motherfuckers were hardcore. Yeah, they challenged the Romans twice and almost defeated them. And one of them was named Hannibal, and they had a bunch of fucking elephants. This started during the Republic, I think. That's kind of what forced them to have a full-on military that could be prepared for Hannibal and his fucking elephants. So yeah, of course there was a bunch of conquests, but that was the big one that is, you know, verging on world war in that section of the world. To them it was the whole world getting challenged and could have fallen. And then Rome's, as it became an empire, yeah, conquering most of Europe, and this is just as groups like Vikings and Celts and all these other groups, Gauls, and there's a bunch of smaller groups that were popping up as their own kingdoms, sort of fiefdoms. But it's when a chieftain rules several chiefs. Yeah, you have a king of kings, you have a pharaoh at this point, but it's still just coming out of tribal phases. I've mentioned before, the Vikings were probably the most successful of those groups because they were more advanced with their science and had, you know, that's the main reason I would attribute. I'm sure they were tough dudes and all that, but no, they had good ships, they had a straight up naval technology and like forging steel or, you know, iron that was borderline steel, yeah. Right, they're making tools and crazy shit before most of the other guys were. And basically what this means is a lot of these groups were already half assimilated as like into somewhat Roman culture. Not all of them. It took a bit longer to push into Germany and that, but all of France and the Dutch Netherlands, yes, Flanders, fucking even into the UK, that took a bit longer, but that whole area got Romanized before it had a chance basically to become its own empire. So by the time any of those areas had their own full-on countries or empires, they were already half Roman. And I've gotten into this before. There's a lot. Spain was similar, of course. Latino, yeah, similar thing with Spain. It's just they kind of went their own direction politically after a while. But yeah, that whole area had been Romanized before any other main, and similar with Africa too. You like, of course, other countries pop up later, but that a lot of them had been either conquered or taken advantage of before they had the chance to do that on their own. So you're gonna see this all over the world, of course. The Middle East, of course, a little vague, but basically I'm thinking, you know, whatever, Egyptians and Persians, between Egypt and Persia, that whole area, yeah, good luck asking Mr. Hashashin exactly where fucking Binder came from. Oh, I'm sure Binder will tell you all sorts of tall tales about that. That's its own region in that sense. And the next big thing coming up is going to be the Crusades. I'm just going to make sure I don't miss anything big before then. Oh yeah, I guess the only thing to tack on the corkboard there is Jesus Christ. Yeah, literally. The Jesus thing happened shortly after the Julius Caesar thing I mentioned. So yeah, the church didn't pop up till a little bit later. It took a couple centuries before there was an actual church. But that started happening because eventually it turns into the Holy Roman Empire and the Roman Catholic Church. That happens centuries later, and that's what leads into the Crusades, which we're getting at. I was just going to point out too, if you're wondering too how Rome took over everything, it was a head start, of course. They had all this Greek technology and everything. But another main reason to point out too, it's kind of like with the Vikings. It's not just being a badass. It's the fact that, again, it's like anyone can be a citizen. They had a big immigration policy, right? They allowed most people to immigrate, and their population swelled into the millions of people who were all in the same country, and the legion was hundreds of thousands of soldiers and well-trained soldiers, and yeah, that's kind of... Even if their technology was a bit better, like they started with just spears and wooden shields, they had to slowly evolve all of it, right? So from the beginning, that was the main advantage that got them rolling, is they got so many refugees in and turned them into citizens, and suddenly, bam, where the fuck did this empire come from? So that's why even Greece, you're right, if you're thinking they, even the Spartans couldn't stop them, it's because there weren't nearly enough of them. Yeah, no, the Roman legion outnumbered them by a huge number, and they were still divided when it came down to that. Of course, Rome conquered into Greece, and the Greeks still couldn't quite unite enough against it. They couldn't rally all those numbers together effectively, and too bad. It took a while. It was, you know, a struggle and all that. All I'm saying is, yeah, by the time it's the Holy Catholic Roman Church and all that, in about the year 1000 AD, 1,000 years after fucking Christ, thousands of years, getting there. That's when most of Europe is the Catholic Church, and even if you have France and England and fucking the Dutch King of Spain, oh yeah, we're fucking there, bud. They're all half Roman as far as their origin and heritage and all that, mixed with all the white guy tribes, whichever Count of Flanders flag from the Dutch Netherlands you're flying. The Swiss Count of Franks, yeah, whatever. Right, yeah, you get the idea. And most of them, almost all of Europe is under, like, Egyptian-style fucking military priest lockdown with the fucking Darth Vader straight from the temple. And that's leading right up to the Crusades. Don't worry, we don't have to spend too much time here. I know some people are like, oh god, the Crusades. Get ready for a sermon from the Bible. No, it won't take that long. But it's an interesting checkpoint, because it's where fucking 9/11 started, buddy. Oh yeah, 1,000 years ago is when 9/11 started, if you got a 9/11 theory for me. And at this point, Egypt is basically Muslim, or not entirely, but that's very much part of the Muslim territories, as far as going into the Crusades. A lot of their soldiers were from there, and that was, you know, since then it's been fucking, you know, not to point fingers around, or this is all speculation. But again, too, Egypt is one of those countries where even the UN probably gets laughed at when they visit. Like, yeah, okay, bud, yeah, okay, wait till they leave. You guys aren't staying here forever, are you? No. So yeah, I mean, it's debatable how the Crusade started, but goddammit, the Pope declared a fucking crusade. Well, you know, someone asked him, yeah, someone asked for his help. He could have stopped it, he could have not declared a crusade. Oh, well, yeah, you know. It's kind of complicated. You know, it was one of those days when I decided not to declare a crusade. I mean, how... This, you know, anyone can relate to this kind of problem. It's one of those days when you gotta declare a crusade. Who's to say... Right, come on. How far can we stretch this bullshit hipster douchebag argument? Yeah, there's, you know, obvious political and monetary reasons for doing this. But to most average people, it was very much a religious war. It was reclaiming fucking Jerusalem, and you know, that would be the motive for most of the average soldiers, and even the knights and stuff. I'm sure some of the barons were thinking of getting rich, and, ooh, my kingdom and all that. My Count of Dutch Flanders castle is straight up wherever the fuck that might be. In the chateau somewhere, but no. Yeah, and the thing is, too, it wasn't just soldiers fighting one battle, it was like a immigration almost, a bunch of, like, yeah, peasants and pilgrims going to the Holy Land, so what that means, too, you might think, they're not just gonna fight with sticks and rakes, but that means labor, and raided people, whatever, we gotta build fucking forts and tents, and fucking, you got laborers with you, like, working for free, basically, for God. So lots of people, some of them did train to be soldiers. If you got young sons or whatever, sure, some of them became knights. So, I mean, I'm sure it was a pretty epic time and all that, but my god. Yeah, so, I mean, we could hibber-jabber all day about why they went to the Holy Land in Jerusalem to find Jesus, and goddamn, sure, but the fact is, it happened. An army of fucking Christians showed up in fucking Jerusalem, or near, you know, in the Holy Land in the Middle East. And a bunch of Muslim ATF motherfuckers got into some fights with them, and my god, the Crusades. I'm pretty sure this is when the jihad started, and it's, I don't know, it's the same jihad. Yeah, it never ended. That's... Yeah, you wonder how long the conspiracy of 9/11's been going on. It's been going on for 1,000 years, but they've been planning that shit for a long time. Oh, Binder is patient. Yes, Binder is patient. He will wait 1,000 years to 9/11 fuck someone. Goddamn. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, this is bordering on another world war, basically, because it's like all of Europe fighting all of the Middle East almost. Not all of it, but a lot of people. Like, probably half the population was involved in some way. Either had to run away from a battle, or fucking was involved in a battle, or trading with them, or somehow involved. Again, only China was isolated from this, and they're still, the last 1,000 years, they've been fighting their civil war and dealing with Mongolians. And Genghis Khan isn't here yet. He's gonna show up right after the Crusades. We're almost there. Yeah, oh my god. So yeah, there were a lot of Crusades, and it went on for thousands of years, but there's like 3 big Crusades, and then a bunch of smaller ones, like the other ones are kind of just, you know, technically so-and-so, Duke Baron of so-and-so was still there, whatever. People kept trying, but no. The first Crusade was the glorious one, where that was the only one they actually won. They, you know, the Knights of the Christians or whatever, they stormed in, fucking, you know, surprise, bitch, oh yeah, no wonder, element of surprise, right? They had a good giant army with them and a bunch of crazy fanatic followers, big cult with them. Rolled on in and captured Jerusalem and held the area for centuries, and then fucking centuries later there was a second crusade. That's the crazy one where Saladin came in. Crazy Muslim ATF motherfucker, like, killed most of the Christian army. pretty epic. There's a good movie about this too, Kingdom of Heaven. It's not historically, yeah, it's pretty fucking close. It's closer than a lot of them. And yeah, obviously there's only so much they can cram into a 3-hour movie, but no, Kingdom of Heaven is a great movie about the Crusades. I'll tack on a list of fucking movies you can watch about all this shit. So yeah, next time you hear about Arabian Nights, this is where those motherfuckers were, fighting Christian knights, and it went on for a couple thousand years and sort of died off. This is where King Richard, yeah, you've heard me mention King Richard. King Richard, motherfucker, was in the Third Crusade. He tried again. After the Second Crusade was the one where Saladin won. Yeah, so Christians won the First Crusade, Saladin won the Second Crusade for the fucking Muslims, and then King Richard rolled in for the Third Crusade, and it was basically a stalemate, and he withdrew, they agreed to withdraw from it, sort of, as far as I know. I don't know exactly how he died after, but as far as I know, he basically lost and agreed to walk away before losing everything, and the Muslims were like, yeah, I know, they respected the fact that he was willing to be reasonable, basically, that he wasn't like a crazy person like some of the other ones. And yeah, that was pretty close. And then a couple people tried little things here and there, but shortly after, Genghis Khan, I know, right? It's just gonna get worse and worse. No, this is when the Mongolians fucking started their giant conquest, the single largest conquest on Earth, and it also happened to be in one person's lifetime. And it also happened to create the largest empire that's ever been known in human history. The largest border of a country was the Mongolian Golden Horde fucking empire. It was most of the world, like most of our side of it was most of Asia, most of, like, almost bordering on into Eastern Europe, towards the Middle East, into Africa, like pushing against India. Like they couldn't get over the Himalayas, I guess. Yeah, fucking Mount Everest saved the Binder over in India. And you might have heard something like this, but yeah, you might be wondering, well, how? Yeah, what was their what's your secret, Flanders? Yeah, that's why we go over this. Why do you think I'm bothering to do all this? It's not just funny. It's, yeah, this is how we learn these lessons, right? What was your secret, Flanders? How did they do it? How was Genghis Khan? So he was a smart guy, obviously, but let's compare it to the Crusades quickly, just saying the Arabian Nights and the Christian Knights, they were quite similar in many ways. Their armies were similar in many ways. Their cultures had some similarities, and they both wanted Jerusalem, right? In a way, they were mirror cultures of each other. So the war was very much a game of chess, with pawns and knights and rooks and castles, and they each had castles and knights and pawns, and right? Mongolians were a little different. So now, naturally you'd compare them to China. That was the first, they already had a lot of experience dealing with Mongolians, but not quite like this, not the Golden Horde. Mongolians were now officially a civilization, an empire organized under one great Khan. They had a fucking pharaoh now. So all those little raiders and bandit groups, they were all one army now, and he did the whole Napoleon thing where he invented an entire military from scratch, all the ranks, the whole, what do you call it? Chain of command. Yeah, he invented their whole chain of command from the ground up, and it was like a squad of 10 units under it was almost, this is the thing, he took a step from old school armies of giant, phalanx formations of thousands of dudes with swords or spears or whatever. Instead, they had mostly cavalry. That was their main advantage. They were all, even before they were into fighting, horses were their main, what the fuck do you call it? Like cows or chickens. Yeah, that was their stable food that they ate and rode with. They were symbiotic with horses, basically. The bordering on being centaurs, not quite. So they already had some advantages, and he made use of them. So yeah, let's start with the natural advantages they had, because China was probably one of the most advanced, if not the most advanced civilizations at the time. Their only problem is, it's not just China, it's fucking the Han Zhengzhou dynasty fighting the Kim Jong-un dynasty. Fucking goddamn, that war is still going on. That's why they were vulnerable. If they had been united, right? What if, right? That's something philosophers ponder with the corncob pipe. But instead, it was the Golden Horde running in. And so yeah, first, the advantages, of course. They already had a bunch of horses. They were already nomadic. So again, they didn't really have cities. They were already used to get up and go. We got to run away. Retreat. Oh, should we retreat? Should we leave this castle behind? For them, retreating is just get up and go, get up and go. It's no different than any other day. That's the Mongolians, I mean. Mongolians are already nomadic, so they can, all of them, even people, their wives and kids and everyone, can get up and go on their own horse and with all their shit, and not have to worry about leaving their families behind or whatever. The whole horde moves together, they can, like, you know, keep the kids back while everyone else fights or whatever, yeah. As opposed to China, where it was much more castles and walls and formations of soldiers. They were doing their own military thing, of course, but it was still mostly traditional in the sense that it was large formations of soldiers with spears and swords and, you know, crossbows and artillery, and it's badass, but again, it's outdated at this point. Genghis Khan, I'm guessing, I'm thinking, my brain is saying, my intuition says his system is the first step towards Napoleon's system. Like, if anything, Napoleon took Genghis Khan's system and turned it into what we use today. Yeah, pretty much every big army up to the Crusades and that was using big groups of soldiers, big groups of cavalry, big groups of archers and catapults and fucking, Lord of the Rings, fucking orcs, and yeah, you get the idea. That's classical, old-school fantasy warfare. And the Mongolians took it one step closer to the future. They were cutting edge in a tactical sense with all their cavalry. He just nailed it. I know, like, this is a fun one to break down. You probably know less about it than any of the other ones. Because instead of big groups, you're probably thinking, like, oh my god, thousands of guys on horses, and they're really good at archery, right? It's not just guys with swords or spears, it's guys with bow and arrow on a horse, and they're really good at it. China had cavalry too, but they weren't as good. They didn't live on horseback. They just, you know, they were like normal knights, I guess. Even normal knights or Arabian knights or whatever would not fare against these fucking Mongolian guys. These guys were crazy. Because yes, they very much live on horseback. They're so used to riding a horse, and they invented stirrups. It's widely argued, maybe someone else could have, but there's no more... The best proof we have is that the Mongolians stirrup... Well, I guess Huns are similar, though. We'll get there. That's kind of an offshoot that happens later, right? As far as we can tell, the old stirrup, it's just like a rope that goes around your foot over the horse and over the other foot, so you can stand up while you're riding and shooting your bow, and yeah, they had that shit going. So they got a bunch of cavalry archers and light cavalry with swords and some guys with heavier flails and shit, and yeah, they got all sorts of crazy shit. And yeah, it's not just thousands of guys, a bunch of cavalry, it's not the Rohan cavalry charge. It's squads. It's squads of, like, infantry, but mounted infantry, so cavalry. And they're in groups of 10, and groups of 10, and groups of 10, and then 10 groups of 10, which is 100, so you got 10 groups of 100 swarming around. Yeah, they can cover so much area, and they can hit and run. They can shoot you and ride away, and then shoot you and ride away. They're not losing hardly anyone, and they can just peck you to death, and yeah, like... You gotta realize this battle is gonna go on for a long time. If you're in charge of, like, a group of infantry with your shields... How long are you gonna last out there? Like, maybe a day or two? What about a week or a month? Like, how are you gonna get food when they're just gonna keep riding back shooting you every hour? This kind of exposes a fatal weakness in that old-school classical army design, is you need a lot of food. An army marches on its stomach, so when you got thousands, tens of hundreds of thousands of soldiers in one army, goddamn, you need a lot of food every day. And they need, like, baggage shipments, carts of food and supplies, and those Mongolian squads on their horses and little thousands of small groups all over the place. Yeah, that means cutting off your supplies is instant all over the place. Like, all your supplies gets cut off, and you can't even get into a normal battle. It's like you want to fight them head on, but they won't let you, and they're just gonna peck all your supplies to death. You can't have an army that big if you can't feed it. Whereas these guys can all forage in their own groups. 10 guys can go hunt a couple deer and be good, and right, these guys are already hunters. I'm sure they could go off and finding, that's what they do anyway, right? So it's like, oh god, they have every advantage. And I don't know how many of them there were. I don't doubt there is not too many. Like, tens of thousands, I guess, is a reasonable guess. There probably wasn't hundreds of thousands, and it must have been more than a few thousand. I would guess at least 10,000, maybe up to 50,000. And over the course, the initial conquest from just Mongolia to most of the world was just in Genghis Khan's lifetime, and then it started shrinking after that. And yeah, no, they went into China. They couldn't go all the way, maybe just because, again, of how big China is. It's fucking huge. And once they discovered the Silk Road in Europe, and ooh, wow, there's a bunch of stuff over here. So that's what I mean. There could only be so many of them. If there were hundreds of thousands of them, he probably would have said, fuck, get all the shit all the time. No, it's how he started with all the shit all the time and said, well, there's more this way. There's only so much he probably didn't know how far China goes, right? It's like, dude, yeah, right? We've already come thousands of miles. How many more thousands of miles of China is there? And China was putting up a pretty vicious fight all the whole way, right? So it's like, goddamn, we can keep pushing into vicious China or head over down the Silk Road and see what else is down there. What he did do is he got some siege technology from China. Yeah, all this Chinese technology, all that science, yeah, instead of burning it all, well, they burned some of it, but no, they kept a lot of it, and, you know, got a bunch of Chinese engineers to join the army, and soldiers, whatever, and ooh, more soldiers, so yeah. And they came as far as fucking Constantinople, and fucking near Jerusalem, all the way down to fucking Arabia. And Genghis Khan died of old age at 60-something. I'm sure he had, you know, a broken whatever. Goddamn. And then, of course, his sons, Kublai Khan and all these guys, their giant empire lasted centuries, but it slowly decayed because the sons and the king's son and the fucking, oh yeah, of course, what do you think happened? They all bickered and fought over what was left, and over many centuries, decayed back into little Mongolia. There's a lot of politics there, but it's pretty continuous from this point forward. Right after that is basically when you get into the era of Pirates of the Caribbean. Oh boy, yeah, basically about less than 1,000 years later, we're already into the era of, yes, the British own the Dutch Indies and the fucking, yeah, ooh, right, yeah, that's when that happens. Yep, pretty much. And I mean, before moving into that, it's funny, I mean, whatever, you might wonder how fast the Mongolians faded out. It's debatable, but you gotta realize they didn't really build an empire. You know what I mean? They didn't build castles or cities or anything. They built tents. Yeah, and they put them on their horses and rode away. So after they left, there was nothing left. It was all just empty land, right? It's not like there's a big country of walls and cities and houses and castles. So they left as quickly as they came in a lot of places, not everywhere. There was this is the thing, they became governors and shit. Like the sons, the king's sons after the king died, right? One of them's the governor of China, one of them's the governor of the fucking Silk Road, one of them's the governor near Constantinople, and then whatever, eventually all the poor guys just there's no more Great Khan, there's no more like official, that kind of just gets dissolved into whatever kingdom they're in, right? They just become the generals of the armies and the fucking whatever. So that did get integrated into a lot of different cultures, very much so. There's a little Mongolian in a lot of people, just like there's a little Roman in a lot of people. And then, yeah, this is right around 1600s, which is into the early pirate days. Oh, man. Again, the politics gets infinitely more complicated as you move forward, because there's so many little countries everywhere, and ooh, this little island is owned by France? Yeah, you get it. I don't know, this is when gunpowder becomes common. Most wealthy countries have cannons and muskets and that kind of shit. Oh, God. So, yeah, you got France, Spain, England, the Dutch, and fucking, I guess, the Swiss, the Sweden, yeah, all these countries in Europe. Italy even, anyone who can get a navy, less so Italy, but the more successful ones, whatever, they tried. Anyone who could tried to build ships and fucking go out there looking for whatever. Italy was finally broke, right? Finally broke. No, that was the time they had to recover after the whole Holy Roman Empire had fallen apart after the Crusades. That's when Italy went broke and was like the more destitute of all of Europe for a while. So yeah, they got their comeuppance. That's why they had less stake involved at first in all this pirate activity going on. There was still a Catholic Church, of course. Yeah, the Pope didn't go anywhere. The Vatican had to get moved from Constantinople to Italy, but it took some time. So yeah, I mean, the Church is still very much around. All the major countries are very much Christian, mostly Christian. Very much the witch burning days, getting into that. Yeah, exactly. But, yeah, I'm just saying the country itself, like, whatever. So, the wealthier countries, yeah, the thing is, they would have done this at any point. They just finally had the technology. Yeah, you probably get it. It's not just the cannons, it's the ships. You know, Vikings, right, the Vikings were kind of doing this already with their smaller longboats, and then eventually that sort of actual naval technology. Because you got to realize, even the Carthaginians were using naval technology, but it was all ships built for very short distance. You've probably seen fucking in the 300 sequel. It's a shitty movie, but you get to see the Greek boats ramming with the oars. I've mentioned this before. If you got a bunch of guys paddling oars on a boat, you gotta feed them a lot of food. Yeah, it's just like the fucking old school army thing. Like, you cannot feed that many soldiers over a long distance. You're not gonna paddle all the way to fucking North America like that, unless you're in a small... Right, the Vikings had it down to a science. Those giant boats with thousands of oars. Yeah, fucking right, dude. Exactly, that's for short distances. Over calm, small seas, going across the ocean is different. You need naval technology. And once we actually had that, that's when that shit was actually becoming a thing. So yeah, once everyone has their big pirate sailing ships, once that sailing technology is there, oh yeah, all over the place looking for India. We found another India. Call them all Indians. Yeah, that was basically a slang word for natives of the region. There was a British East India Company. Yeah, the locals, they called them Indians. No matter where they were. That's why that was a slang word here for a long time. So yes, Vikings technically explored here first from this region, period, blah 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 blah. It was not an invasion, it was small groups of explorers. They settled in, like, Greenland and Iceland and shit. But, yeah, oh, Greenland's actually, yeah, cool, yeah, whatever, man. They settled both. And they did explore into, like, Quebec or whatever, but yeah, no, it was not an army. It was like a fucking couple boats of guys, like, fucking cool, but this is really far away. And yeah, this is when a lot of small, isolated groups get discovered by explorers from Europe, right? And I don't doubt that some of them are their own races, like on Hawaii and shit, kind of like the Australian natives. Yeah, but, you know, maybe that wasn't recorded at the time, fucking whatever. All I'm saying is that's when the modern day really gets rolling, just before the industrial era. And yeah, no, again, we're not stopping for too much politics here. I'm just covering global conflict and how it became World War I. We're close to World War I, exactly. Getting there. But yeah, oh my god, so before we get to North America, this is when the Spanish roll into South America and wipe out the Aztecs. Yeah, the Aztecs are still ruling over in America. The big fucking galactic empire of the Aztecs. And then the Spanish roll in with, you know, it wasn't too many guys at first. At first it was just some pirates and sailors and shit. But of course, oh, we found, guess what we found, guys? Just lush, nice jungle, fucking, yeah, fruit fucking hanging off the trees, Jamaica, fucking Cuba, my god, man, the Caribbean, yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean, my god. And, yeah, there's a lot of factors involved. Oh, they found gold, yeah, gold was one reason, not the only reason, just, oh my god, look what we found, yeah. Who doesn't want to go to Jamaica, right, after fucking living in Europe after all this shit? And then, you know, obviously, yeah, the disease is one factor as well, and I'm not doubting some people figured out that, oh, if we get sick people here, fucking Genghis Khan did that, he would catapult diseased bodies into cities as a form of biological warfare, so I don't doubt that there was some biological warfare involved, but I don't think it happened immediately. They probably didn't figure that out till a bit later when they realized, oh, the disease is killing them as well as war, as well as their society falling apart. Yeah, you could imagine when their temple didn't have much to say when people were shooting them with muskets. And yeah, this is the thing with any of these conquests. It's not like they shot every single person they found. Right, some of them yes, some of them no. I'm not saying all bad, all good, whatever. But yeah, some people were probably laughing when they saw Aztecs running away getting shot. And, of course, the Spanish didn't know which ones were Aztecs immediately. They figured it out eventually, just whatever, vaguely, right? I'm sure they still made mistakes. But at first, it's just, yeah, we don't know who. People who are not attacking us and people who are attacking us. Right? And that quickly turns into paranoia, and oh, then you do start shooting people on sight. But yeah, it's very vague at first. They did actually make contact with Montezuma, or whoever the fuck it was. The Incas, yeah, they did meet some of these people and make some allegiances, but it did break into war in a lot of areas. The big empires fell apart. Aztecs, Incas, Mayas, all of the big empires, they still had a lot of tribal areas which were becoming nations. The North American tribes were basically nations at that point. They had, settlements around all these areas. But the big scary empires fell apart then, and that's right as the fucking North America is starting to get colonized, and that's a lot of politics. But let's go over the conquest. Within a couple centuries, from 1600 to 1800, basically. I don't know if it's 1776 or whatever the fuck it was that America became a country, but you gotta realize too, when America became a country, it was basically just the East Coast. It was the 13 colonies, the 13 states. Yeah, it was just the East Coast, and it took another fucking century to conquer the rest of it. Call it whatever the fuck you want. I don't care if King Henry or George Washington's in charge, or if no one's in charge. If it was no one, is that really better? No one was really responsible for it. It just happened. Yeah, well, that's the problem, right? Sometimes you do need someone like Napoleon. That's coming up, don't worry. But basically just around this time of the Civil War and shit is when Napoleon gets going in Europe, because everyone is busy trying to colonize everywhere else. He's like, oh, Europe's up for grabs, eh? I've talked about him in other parts, but that's basically all you need to know about him for right now. Napoleon tried to conquer Europe while this was happening everywhere else. That's what his thing he was doing. Didn't quite work. He failed eventually, but that was kind of right before World War I when they're thinking, oh man, this could be a problem, right? Yeah, lots of politics, but let's finish up with America first. Oh, America. No, don't worry. We're all back in American Civil War. Oh, fucking hell. No, it's, even by the time the Civil War happened, it wasn't the whole country. Yeah, again, it's mostly the East Coast up to, the middle, the Mississippi River and that shit. The West Coast was still mostly unsettled. Even up to the modern day, if you look at a satellite map at night, a lot of the West Coast is just open country. I mean, the Midwest, whatever the fuck you want to call it. The coast has cities and shit, of course. I'm just saying, a lot of the states originally was just the eastern half. So yes, this conquest took place over a long period of time, lots of weird politics involved, but... Yeah, and I guess if I had to point to the one folly of, the thing that could have changed what if, basically if the native tribes were more united, if they were a golden horde of Mongolians, if they were as united as Genghis Khan, they probably would have won. Unfortunately, they did not have Genghis Khan in charge of everything, so in my opinion, that's how they were defeated. They were not as united as the Great Khan. And, so yeah, The Civil War, basically, America declares independence. All these colonies spring up on the East Coast. 13 colonies get together with George Washington, all these crusty old fuckers, and they declare independence from Britain and all their France and the Dutch Netherlands. Yeah, fuck you guys, we're not paying taxes, whatever. And then what do you think happens? The British roll in. The British invade before the Civil War, I think. And they're like, oh, fuck this. Yeah, the queen gets a hairy vagina over this and says, what the fuck? So in comes the queen's vagina straight up and bleeds all over the country, and it almost destroys them. Then they shove a fucking plunger in that shit and stop the queen's vagina blood from spraying all over, and then get her the fuck back over to England. And we're getting there, brah. Just whatever, that's probably what they were saying about it at the time. And, and then shortly after that, there's a fucking civil war. Because, slavery, there's a bunch of reasons. The South fought the North, and Canada was a colony of Britain at the time. It was just not as developed, of course. Yeah, they burned down the White House before it was even a colony, right back when it was a colony and not a state. It's called a lot of politics, but yeah, no, Canada didn't really... there was small, again, it was a just straight up colony of Britain until later. World War I, basically. Yeah, they declared independence, sort of declared independence. It wasn't quite the same. Canada declared independence officially, as World War I is, that's when it was official, because Britain was not in a position to do anything. Yeah, you need our help, exactly. That's when that became official. in my opinion, whatever, yeah, you can bicker over the politics. It was not quite the same. But basically, yeah, the Civil War lasted, not too long, 50 years, maybe 100 years at the most. Whatever, you can, that's an easy thing to Google. Back in the Civil War, yeah, my god. All you need to know is the North won. The Confederates lost. They're both American, they're both ones that... This is the thing, the North was the Union, the United States is the North. The Confederacy was more like a confederacy of independent systems, kind of like Star Wars. It was more like feudal, almost, like each state would, I don't know, it's very similar but kind of different. When you think of the United States, that's very much the Union, the North part of that won the Civil War. The only politics I'll touch on for that is when you hear about Democrats and Republicans. It's basically the North and the South. It's the governors from the North and the South. And I'm pretty sure the Democrats are from the South. And the Republicans are the Northern Union ones. But it's fucking... That's as far as I'm going into Tucker Carlson's Quantum-Anus on that. The only correlation I'll make is... The United States is a democratic republic. It just like Rome was a republic, the old republic, before it became an empire. Yeah, we're getting there. But the Republicans, the republic, right? That's why that's what that is. And the Democrats for the fucking Confederacy, again, it's democratic, but maybe more like a Greek fraternity. Whatever. Point is, it's not. The only thing left of that is the Democrats. Hey, at least they're democratic. So is a republic, right? My god, the public. That's all you really need to know about that. And I mean, like I said, yeah, that was another big conquest of a whole fucking continent. And, some of them are still around at least, but my god, there's still a lot of shit going on there. We'll get into that eventually. Yeah, it's all in good time as all the atrocities come forth, yes. Yes, but let's finish with the conquest. My god, the conquest. Napoleon almost conquered fucking Europe during all this. But the motherfucker lost in Trafalgar, because fucking the British fleet defeated them. That's one of the crippling blows that crippled his whole war effort. Because he needed that navy, right? Without the navy, there's a lot of reasons. Waterloo, yes, was a big battle he lost. Pretty much the first battle he lost. It's like, shit, I finally lost a battle. Uh-oh, he's not invincible. Yeah, no, it was bad, but there's a few things. Anyway. Yeah, no, the British crushed his navy with an awesome naval maneuver with old British cannon. That was the last time that there was a naval duel with big pirate ships and knife fighting at close range with hundreds of cannons going off and wooden ships. Yeah, that's basically the last time that happened with big fleets of ships, was Napoleon versus the British Navy. There was other people involved, but that was the big clash of navies. And the reason that's important is that's what all the naval historical admiralty schools would teach right up until World War I, when that all changed. We're not quite there yet, but we're close. There's a short gap of like 100 years between, like the Civil War and Napoleon's conquest of Europe to World War I, and that gap is basically the industrial era, and now everyone's got cars and steam engines, ion steam coal engines, and their fucking Titanic ships and trains. Yeah, that all gets rolling, all that technology and industry gets rolling. And by the time World War I rolls around, Europe is still sort of coming out of the Renaissance into the industrial era, but it's still very much composed of monarchies. You still have dukes and counts and duchess and dukes and princes and kings and lords and all this shit. It's still in that system, and most of the royal families are all interbred. Yes, the Tsars of Russia, the Queen of England, the Duke of Flanders, they're all related. Yeah, there's a good a documentary I'll attach to this that you can watch after or whatever, just to get your own sense of it. But that's basically where it starts. It's got pictures of these guys, and it's like fucking what's his name, the Tsar Nicholas of Russia and some fucking Duke of the Soviet whatever, some other territory, and they look fucking identical, but it's two different guys. They're like twins basically, and one's the Count of Germany and one's the fucking Tsar of Russia. So yeah, we're pretty much there, just that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Right up until World War I, we're getting right there. Yeah, there's a Queen of England, there's a fucking Count Duke of Germany, there's a fucking Tsar of Russia, there's a Baron of France, all these major countries, the King of Spain, fucking straight up the King of Spain. Fucking most interesting man in Spain, right? They're all there. The Spanish are digging into Mexico, the fucking Alamo, whatever the fuck you want to call it, man. America's just coming out of the cowboy era. Like, they're straight up still in the cowboy era at this point. John Wayne is riding around with his six-shooter at the point of leading up to World War I. Just to set the stage, Canada is barely a country. It's still basically a colony of England. We're getting there. Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. Just keeping in mind the political setting and the industrial setting. Most of these, first world countries now have access to steam engines, gas engines, oil. They can use oil for gas engines. They have very rudimentary jeeps and vehicles and cars and trucks and stuff. Old school trucks, yeah. Old school grandpa truck. And they have guns that actually breech load, or bolt action guns. Basically, that's the most advanced. There are some machine guns, but they're barely there. That technology is just on its way. Yeah, the Sir Gatling, whoever made his one crazy machine gun. We're just getting into the stage of being able to manufacture something like that. But most people would just have a bolt-action rifle, or like a shotgun or a rifle where you have to load one bullet at a time kind of thing. But they're actual bullets, and yeah, six-shooter pistols and that kind of technology. And naval technology, the Civil War in America, one thing we'll point to before moving on, is when they started using metal ships. So they started ironclad ships. The British experimented with this with chains and stuff, but never really had the chance to use it. But the world saw it. Other countries were like, holy shit, did you see the Civil War? Yeah, what happened? Well, the Confederates built a fucking steel dreadnought. A normal dreadnought with steel plating, and yeah, cannonballs were bouncing off of it. Oh fuck, what do we do? The Union built their own really quick, and there was an epic duel of metal-clad dreadnoughts, and it lasted hours, like all day, and these are shooting cannons at each other, and they're just bouncing off. They're like, shit, none of our weapons are strong enough to pierce this armor. This is awkward. They invented a little submersible sub, like a submarine that tried to drill through the bottom. Yeah, all this technology, they tried, it didn't work. That's the thing, yeah. But a lot of this technology started then right before World War I, so these ideas were around. Who won the epic duel? Eventually the Union won the war, right? So it's like, sorry, yeah, eventually that one ship wasn't enough. But it was quite a thing to see, yeah, after Trafalgar and all that shit with the Napoleon's fleet fighting the British. It's like, my god, all these ships, all these cannons, and all you needed was an ironclad plating, and all those cannonballs are going to bounce off. So you're going to start to need more powerful guns. Yeah, no, we're not there yet, but that's pretty much it. That's everything as I can think of leading up to it. Of course, when we start World War I, we're going to have to set the stage officially, but that's most of the big global scale conflict leading up to it. All the old empires have fallen. There are still very much empires. Oh yeah, and all these European countries, the fucking Dutch Count of Flanders and them. Yeah, again, they're all related. They're all in the same royal family. They're all... Queen Victoria is their grandma, like everyone's grandma. And then they start bickering, and then World War I. We'll cover the details. Yeah, this is where it gets into the details of World War I. Get ready, Junior!